We're unmuted. And it says.
Righty. Good evening, everybody. I'll go ahead and call this evening's special council meeting regular council meeting to order, just at a special time, that's all. Please note that the council chambers have reopened to the public. Meetings will continue to be live streamed and available for public viewing on YouTube. As part of the virtual public participation, if you have any questions regarding items on the agenda, please submit them by email to Deputy Clerk, all one word, at ektwp.ca. Questions received prior to the meeting will be addressed during the public question period, which is limited to 15 minutes. We begin this regular council meeting by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin First People. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Before we get into adopting the agenda, I'll just do a quick acknowledgement and roll call here. We have almost a full slate for council. I'm joined by Councillors Downey, Osterhoff, Edie, Smith, and Brayton. We do have regrets from Councillor Renault, who was originally scheduled to be out of town, but recently checked in with me and is quite under the weather. So I'm not even sure if she's made her other commitment, which would have taken her away from this evening. We have a number of members of our staff here from Public Works, Finance, our CAO, and our Deputy Clerk. And we do have a member of the public joining us this evening, which is always nice. With that, I'll move into the adoption of the agenda. Look for a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Smith, that the regular meeting of council agenda dated November 24th, 2025 be adopted as amended. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Does any member have a pecuniary interest with regards to any item on tonight's agenda? And if so, what is the general nature? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we'll move into the adoption of the minutes. The motion is that the regular meeting of council minutes dated October 27th, 2025, and the special meeting of council minutes dated November 17th, 2025 be adopted. Mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Downey. Any questions, comments, or concerns with regards to either of those sets of minutes? Okay, hearing seeing none. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. We will move on then to our committee reports. We simply have the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting. So the motion is that the Committee of the Whole minutes dated November 3rd, 2025 be adopted. A mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by somebody, Councillor Osterhoff, thank you. Any questions, corrections, or concerns with regards to that set of minutes? I do believe that we have some motions coming out of that. Okay, seeing no comments, all those in favor? Carries, thank you. Okay, so coming out of that set of minutes, first motion, the council direct staff to investigate option number 1 and option number 5 for a 2026 budget discussion as presented in report A-25-66 during the November 3rd, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting. I believe that was with regards to arrangements for bylaw. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Edie. Any further discussion on this item since the committee meeting? Okay, I'll go ahead and call that. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Also from that set of minutes, the council directs staff to include the 2025 draft asset management plan and its recommendations as attached to report F-25-24 with any budget implications each year to be approved in the 2026 budget process. And the council directs staff to make any material amendments to the 2025 asset management plan for council approval of the final asset management plan upon conclusion of the 2026 budget process as presented in report F-25-24 during the November 3rd, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting. A mover and seconder for that, please. Okay. Yep, I can reread it if you wish. Thanks, Councillor Edie. Seconder, if you would. Councillor Smith, thank you. Any discussion around this item coming out of the committee? Okay, all those in favor? That carries. Okay, also coming out of that set of minutes, the council directs staff to proceed with option number 2 for assuming ownership of the Greenbank Cemetery as presented in report A-25-60 during the November 3rd, 2025 the whole meeting. A mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Smith. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? That carries. Next one, the council approves the draft 2026 council calendar, and the council reserves the right to cancel or alter the time or day of any meeting with proper notice being given to the public as presented in report A-25-64 during the November 3rd, 2025 committee of the whole meeting. A mover and seconder for that one, please. Moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Eady. Further discussion, if any? Okay, all those in favor? Carries. Next, the council directs staff to prepare a bylaw to establish a cemetery committee and adopt the cemetery committee draft terms of reference as presented in report A-25-65 during the November 3rd, 2025 committee of the whole meeting. A mover and seconder for that one. Moved by Councillor Eady, seconded by Councillor Smith. Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Carries. Next, the council receive and file correspondence items 1 and 2 as received during the November 3rd, 2025 committee of the whole meeting. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Ostroff, seconded by Councillor Eady. Discussion, if any? Okay, all those in favor? Carries, thank you. Okay, I believe that brings us to the conclusion of the motions coming out of that set of minutes. So now we're into staff reports. First item, 6.1, regarding the New Dublin Garage Concept Design RFP Award. The motion is the council award RFP-PW-2025-01 to Pye and Richards, Temprano and Young Architects, Inc. in the amount of $34,740 even, excluding HST, to complete phase 1 conceptual design for the Public Works Garage, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the necessary agreement. I'm looking for a mover and seconder to get that on the floor. Moved by Councillor Eady, seconded by Councillor Osterhoff. So I'll turn to staff. Do you have anything to add before we begin?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to, I guess, review the process and review the report. So, council have been looking at the Public Works Garage in New Dublin over the summer, did a tour of it, have given staff direction to put out an RFP, looking to have conceptual design work done for 3 different options for the garage, either renovating the existing facility, renovating and constructing an additional facility, or demolishing the existing structure and constructing a completely new facility. Staff issued the RFP in late August. It's concluded in the end of September 30th. There was a little bit of a delay. We ended up having to extend it a couple of times because we found that we had a whole lot of questions coming in from the various proponents who had been into, who had downloaded the proposals. So we ended up extending it until 16th of October. At the close of that, we ended up having 11 proposal submissions from across Canada. The proposal, the RFP proposal, actually included the evaluation matrix, which was attached to the document. Staff, there were 4 staff that evaluated all of the RFPs using the evaluation criteria. So it was myself, the CBO, the finance director, and the public works manager. We reviewed all of the proposals and evaluated them based on the criteria. The proponent that we're recommending came out as the highest value, or at least the highest in terms of the evaluation proposal. We did note that there were proposals which were lower in value that we felt didn't have sufficient time in their proposal to really do what we expected and anticipated from this design phase. So while there may have been some that had a lower value, this one came out as the highest score. came out with a sufficient number of hours within the proposal. We did also look at project management. Obviously, project manager is a key part of any of this, and looked at the number of hours that they had. And although the one that we're recommending was a little bit lower than we would have anticipated, we still feel that we can get enough value out of it, and or get them to up the hours of the project manager to make it sort of a little bit more in line with what we're anticipating. I believe that's pretty much all I have to say. We're looking forward to any questions.
Okay, so before the discussion on the core topic of the report begins, for the benefit of the public, we did receive an email over the weekend from a council member asking if we could get a list of the respondents, the names of the companies that had responded. And I did respond to that inquiry, just to give the benefit of some of the experience that I've been through within the last year or so at the county table. There was a similar appetite to know who was involved in the bidding processes, and there was a lot of pushback from the county council to the anonymized table approach, similar to what we see in this report. As a result of that pushback, the county brought in a subject matter expert around procurement law and the way that it's changed over the years. And it was the strong recommendation that there should be a separation of the evaluation and the decision-making process, and that names should not be included. Quite frankly, this is a result of years and years, and probably decades and decades, of the public accusing all levels of government in politically interfering and showing favoritism in awards of tenders. And so this is a way of guarding against that. In the end, the question was posed to the council, at least at the county horseshoe. And what would you do with this information if it was given to you? Would it influence your decision on which respondent to award the tender to? And if so, should you be using that information to influence? So in the end, this is much like why we don't see the check register anymore. There's been some evolution in the way that the public processes roll out. So rather than have that aspect of this report be a bit of a distraction from the core subject, if there's going to be discussion around the nature of the report and the information that's presented in tender reports and so on, let's get that out of the way first. If the council is going to give direction to staff, we can go ahead and do that. But I would rather not be bouncing back and forth between that, which is really not the focus of this particular report, and this particular topic. So with that, if anybody has any comments or proposed direction to staff with regards to the way that we deal with our tenders, let's get that out of the way first. Councillor Brayton.
You said a councillor wanted to know?
Yes. Yeah, it was an email over the weekend that said, ready for the discussion. I'd like this information. And so I provided that high level response like I've just, described now. And of course, the public wasn't privy to that. It happened over the weekend. And so I'm just being transparent that that's what took place over the weekend. And if we are going to discuss that, I would like to deal with that and get it out of the way before we move on to the actual tender that's in front of us. Councillor Downey?
I appreciate your explanation from your experience at the counties. It seems like government speak to me when the way you explained it. Because basically what we're dealing here with is an open to the public tender. And you mentioned that possibly political, you could get somebody picked based on something to do with politics. But the same could be said for staff. They may want it to lean a certain way for whatever reasons, but nothing about that is public. And I think openness and transparency in tendering is really important. We do it on certain jobs. I believe we've seen that on the bridge tenders. I believe we see that on road tenders. I'm not sure why we couldn't see it on this one. It's like staff wanted a certain outcome and, they didn't want anybody to really interfere with that outcome. We can't even see who did it. And, I can't support that recommendation. I thought the report was good, but because of this closed, way of looking at tenders, I can't support it. Another thing is, the facilities manager, I don't think was included in the evaluation of the tenders. I'm not sure why that is, because basically this is a tender that is, for the main facility. It's going to be the main facility of the whole township by the looks of things. So, yeah, I can't support it, based on just, it seemed too close for me. And I'm sure a lot of the public who pay the bills here, they think the same way. It's simple. It's just simple.
Okay, so I'll address those in reverse order. So, can you clarify who was involved in the evaluation?
Yes, Your Honor, or Your Honor. Your
No, thanks.
Yes, the facilities manager was not included, but the chief building official was included. They have extensive experience in reviewing building designs and reviewing projects of this nature, and so we put them into the evaluation panel to gain their expertise.
Thank you for that. And regarding your point, Councillor Downey, in terms of the openness and so on, as I indicated in my response over the weekend, I was one of the ones that was pushing back and didn't feel very comfortable when the process started. I guess I felt more comfortable as a result of the procurement lawyer coming in and explaining the exposure to risk that we leave ourselves open to if we continue with past practices. So I take your point well that there are other tenders where the names have been disclosed. I'm going to turn to staff and ask if I'm right in my assumption that this maybe marks the first one in a move towards future tendering reports will be done this same way. Is that the intention?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, and there have been other points in the past when council have seen an anonymized list of proponents. And yes, we have not done that for some of the recent ones, but I think it's within our procurement policy that we have to be careful with bidders' information, and there is a part of the policy which does speak to protecting their information and their who has bid. So we will be looking to ensuring that we're following the procurement policy, which is what we have done in this instance as well.
So I guess there's no perfect solution. I mean, I understand your discomfort, and I think it's valid. I think every system will have its flaws. I wonder, if I go back to you, if you might be comfortable, and I'll ask staff about this. Do you think that we would be okay to separately publish a list, which in no way could be linked to the points matrix? In other words, here's a list of the 11 respondents in some random order, just so that we have that list, and here's the evaluation that's anonymized, so that there can't be a link to the information. That may be a way to bridge some of the gap.
Sure, Your Worship, staff are prepared to take council's direction as to how they would like to see this, if they want to see this information.
Okay, Councillor Downey.
Well, I'd like to have it explained to me what information could a contractor possibly not want about their company name showing up on a public tender. Like, what's and if they didn't want information of their company name to be put in a public tender, then they don't have to bid it. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
You want to go first, and then I can weigh in with a bit of experience from the county discussion. This is all sounding very familiar, actually.
Thank you, Your Worship. Where the company name gets connected to a bid price, to number of hours, gives some of their pricing information as to how they bid on projects, and that's something that other competitors may use in the future.
I'm not asking for the total evaluation process and the total, we're looking at end numbers here. And I think the public thinks that the council should be involved in this type of dealings.
Mhm.
Now, what we're telling the public by this explanation is that no, and in the future, you're going to even be less involved. You know, I'm sure that most people don't agree with that. And I don't understand it. I don't think it's going to take a lot of explaining to get that through my thick skull.
Fair enough. Anybody else want to weigh on this? We can't really have, one or two members of council providing direction, so we need a consensus here. Councillor Smith?
So I made my notes before we started the meeting, so, and this is not really the spot to really make an amendment to the procurement policy. But I don't disagree by listing the vendor. We're not listing the value, we're listing the vendor. So we know who at least bid on these jobs. I don't disagree with majority of the comments that Councillor Downing has made. The matrix is the matrix. But it'd be interesting to know, it really blew my mind when I saw a company that bid and only put in 85 hours to do this kind of job. But anyways, and their price was $15,000. So people are going to say, well, do you not go with the lowest bid? That's the first thing they're going to say.
Mhm.
When they see this metrics, it's now public. Well, I thought you always go with the lowest bid. So, we as a council, that has to go through our minds that we make the decision here of how we're going to proceed. So, as far as the policy goes, I have no issue of making a proposal to amend that to list the vendors. We can't list the value, but at least we can list the vendors. And you don't know if they're A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like I'm just saying, at least list them so we know who they are.
All right, so I guess anybody else to want to weigh in?
Well,
Councillor Ostrov?
Yeah, I think this is a really good discussion. It's unfortunately, it should be more generic. We're tying it into one topic right now. Like, I'm not sure why staff was able to enact a new policy when we didn't ask them to put that new policy in place. And just randomly, on this instant, they come up with a new policy, and we should have discussed it on a generic form and either applied it or not apply it according to a discussion. We're trying to do that right now, I guess.
Well, what I'm trying to do is develop at least some consensus to give a direction, because I sense that this would spark this type of discussion. And what I wanted was for the discussion to be segregated so that each aspect was clear.
Yeah.
Right. One is a mechanics process independent of this particular tender.
Yeah.
Once we get that out of the way, then we can not feel distracted. We can deal with the tender itself. But I sense a bit of a consensus, and I look for some nodding of heads. So if we ask staff then to come back with options on how we can address our appetite for information around tenders and procurement best practices, I think then we can have a more robust discussion, that's obviously been prompted from what we see here. Is that fair? I don't see any shaking of heads, Councillor Wright.
It's got to be transparent.
Mhm.
Like Councillor Downey said, like people want to know, and we want to know. As a councillor, we want to know. And I don't think it's asking too much to have a list of who applied. And there's always a chance of somebody has an experience. One of us has had an experience that went south, and we wouldn't want nothing to do with it. That's certain. party.
Mhm.
So I think it's, as long as it's transparent and we can get it through our head, it's gotta be clear to us before we can sell it to somebody else.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think the actual evaluation process, even anonymized the way it is, the table is very clear and transparent in terms of for any given proponent, you know, how did they score on the evaluation, on the price, you know, those types of things, what their rank was. So there's a fair amount of information in there. If we want more detail, and that's something that we can provide through a more complete matrix, well, fair enough. I do want to pick up on something Councillor Smith touched on, and that is, don't you always go with the lowest price? Even from my day sitting in the public gallery, I remember discussions that talked about cost, and the fact that all of our tenders indicate that we reserve the right not to go. We won't necessarily go with the lowest price. And I've always been a very strong proponent on choosing the best value, which is not necessarily the lowest cost. You can put a $10 part on your car that fails every 6 months, or you can spend $100 and, you know, do something in the last 10 years, which is the better value. So that's what the matrix is designed to do. And in this case, I think 30 points was assigned for price, if I remember correctly. So it does play, you know, a fairly weighted role in it, but it's not the only factor. So in case members of the public are wondering, we're trying to arrive at the best decision, not the cheapest decision.
Exactly.
So I think, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Eady.
What if we did it as a solution for like, when the tenders came in, they just listed like we used to. This tender came in from this company, this tender came in from this company, so you guys just have the list as a staff report.
Mhm.
And then the report comes back, so then that way everybody knows who the companies are, but then you don't, once it comes out in the matrix, the names aren't attached.
Fair enough.
Could
Yeah,
it be something like that?
I see our staff making notes, and I'm sure that'll form part of the discussion that we'll ultimately have. Councillor Downey?
And what you just mentioned, the lowest or any tender does not necessarily have to be accepted. That says volumes. And it basically it promotes the evaluation process, which is very important in doing like a construction type evaluation of tenders. But to basically say that we don't want council to know or the public to know, because they might turn it around and do something wrong, because that's basically what's being said.
Mhm.
That doesn't fly in democracy.
All right, so I think we've given direction to staff. We can look forward to another robust discussion around the mechanics of the tendering. I'm going to suggest that's probably reached a decent conclusion at this point. Now we can swing our attention to the actual specific tender itself. So I'll open up the floor for any questions or discussion on that aspect of this report, if any. Councillor Brayton.
There's always been, since I come here, the lowest bid was not always the best bid.
Mhm.
And we try to look at it, the cheapest, try to save money, but it isn't always the cheapest.
So am I to interpret then that in this particular case, you wouldn't necessarily be comfortable going with proponent F, whoever that is, the cheapest bid that was received?
I wouldn't.
Alrighty, anybody else?
We did on the bridge job.
Councillor Downey?
I don't count for either. It
Yeah, yeah.
wouldn't bother me.
I am concerned about the fact that the facilities manager wasn't involved in the process. And even like when the tenders do get evaluated, the real tenders, I think that there should be a counselor involved in the evaluation process to have some form of representation of the people on that evaluation committee when you're talking about tenders that are up in the millions of dollars. But the facilities manager is the person who knows the buildings, they understand the construction, and then they're not included.
So can I ask, what value you think the facilities manager would bring that our chief building official wouldn't bring?
Well, the facilities manager is the person who is in charge of the facilities. And that's a facility.
Okay. All right, Councillor Edie?
I tend to agree with Councillor Downey. It is the boots on the ground guy. I don't. But did he look over it afterwards? Like, cause his name is on it at the bottom.
Or CAO?
Through your worship, he wasn't involved in the evaluation process. I'm not sure whether he got circulated on the proposals. But again, our CBO may not be the facilities manager, but is used to seeing these types of buildings get constructed and is used to seeing how design work happens for these buildings. You know, they themselves have designed buildings through their own business. So having them evaluate the tenders for design processes seemed perfectly natural. That's what they have done.
Okay, follow up on Councillor Edie?
Yeah, I definitely want him in charge of it after the pictures are there. I kind of jumped the gun. I'm good. Sorry.
So you're not concerned with the?
Not right now, no.
Okay. All right, Councillor Ostrov, I think that's all your hand up.
Yeah, along the same lines, I think I can support this proposal going forward, but with some hesitation. I really would like to see Jason, or facilities manager, sorry, involved at least in the next phase of the project, because as soon as we get the key from the final project, he's gonna be one replacing light bulbs and plugs and updating insulation or whatever it is. He should be there understanding it from the ground up, so that it's a lot easier to maintain it for the next 20 years. So that's my concern. And the other concern is, you know, it's outside of our approved budget again, and it's chicken feed, yeah, but it's a few $1,000s again above what we, and maybe, and I supported the, maybe I didn't understand how much it's gonna cost to do this part, but we can't keep going spending more money than we have. And I'm just in the bottom line, staff will continue to review approved 2025 capital budget to determine if surplus funds can be identified and help pay for this over budget possible, if we approve it. Now, can staff say that between, like, did they see anything yet? A savings elsewhere, or is this gonna be, we're supporting spending more money than we have?
I realize this is a slight deviation. We'll turn it to our Director of Finance. And can you give us a general sense, when last we heard what our year-end projection looked like, there was a certain picture that you presented to us. How are we trending against that unfortunate picture?
So through yourself, your worship, and to members of council, at the last projection, the projected deficit was $304,000. Since then, and as I indicated at that time, various reviews have been undertaken. I can tell you at this point in time that projected deficit has reduced from $304,000 to approximately $227,000 due to various anomalies that have been recorded and corrected. In direct answer to Councillor Oosterhoff's question with respect to the amount being requested here, which is over the current budget, based on the review so far, and with respect to capital, I'm quite confident that if this was approved this evening, the overage that is outlined in the report would be found through other surplus positions within the 2025 budget. Will answer your question.
Thank you.
Okay, and to our CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to again respond to the facilities manager not being involved in this. This part of the process is about design, and certainly our CBO has a lot more experience in the design elements of it. As we move into construction and then move into other phases of this, the next second and third phase, yes, the facilities manager should be involved because they're going to be the ones ultimately responsible for managing that facility. But this particular part of this is about design. And certainly our CBO has the experience in design, and that's why they would have been included in this.
Anybody else? All right, so we have the recommendation to go with Fine Richards, Temprano and Young for $34,740. Final call if there's any further discussion, otherwise I'll call the question. Okay, all those in favor, sorry, Councillor Smith.
Before you get going.
Yep.
So we approve this tonight. When do we have a time frame to expect this to come back?
Or CAO.
I might look to, well, either the other two, I can't remember, their time frame was relatively quick, like most of them were sort of within the same time frame, but I can't remember exactly what that was.
Mid to late January, yeah.
Hey,
What was that answer?
Mid to late January.
And again,
Sorry.
your worship, so that's for them to come back to council with 3 options. One of the challenges we faced in this was that for the consultants bidding on a job that had to have 3 options was very challenging. Usually they're just given 1 option and then they design for that. So this is probably why it's a little higher, because you know it was a little bit challenging for them to say, okay, we're going to come forward with 3 different options for you to consider, and so that has probably impacted on the pricing.
Okay. All right, there's nothing else. Okay, I'll go ahead and call the question on that motion then. All those in favor? And opposed? Okay, that does carry. Good. Okay, moving on then to,
Just a question.
Sorry, Councillor Matt. Yeah.
So before we move on to the next one, so if I read council and yourself, so staff is gonna come back to us with some recommendations to our procurement policy.
yeah, so the way, yeah, I guess it's part of our procurement policy, the way that we handle the tendering and reporting process.
Yeah.
To our CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. And so the purchasing policy is about the process we go to in terms of going to the marketplace. It is pretty silent on it then talks about where council's authority is to approve a decision, because in the purchasing policy the council has delegated the authority to staff to proceed within budget decisions up to 75,000. So this would be where we are not having to come back to council. We're still going to follow the same process, but where we are coming back to council, it will give a little bit more information on how the process was evaluated.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah, so I think what council's looking for an opportunity to discuss the mechanics around, we'll use the one that we just passed as the example, right? So we're looking for an opportunity to weigh in on the mechanics of those types of reports and circumstances and what our options are, because council was not 100% comfortable with what we got this time around. There may be some understanding ultimately that we may not get 100% of what we want, but we want an opportunity to have that discussion to arrive at some kind of a finish line on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to 6.2. This is with regards to Elizabethtown-Kitley Stormwater Management Bylaw. The motion is that report PW 25-34 be received, and that council adopt the proposed stormwater management bylaw for stormwater management facilities and drainage systems within multi-lot subdivisions and land severances that are privately owned, operated, and maintained by the benefiting lot owners. And the council adopt the draft lot grading and drainage policy. And the council approve the draft plan conditions for the prior subdivision as included herein to be incorporated into the subdivision agreement to ensure long-term maintenance responsibilities, access rights, and legal protections for all affected property owners. So that is the recommended motion coming out of the report. I need a mover and seconder to get that on the floor, and then we can discuss that one. Okay, moved by Counselor Smith and a seconder, Counselor Osterhoff. So to staff, does somebody, maybe Mr. Metcalf, do you have anything you wish to add at this point?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you to you and to council. So this is a pretty lengthy document. There's lots of information in here. While I'd like to say, yes, I'd like you to approve it and pass it tonight and move on, we can do that. So I guess whether you guys want to take some time to review it, I strongly recommend you do. It is a complete change in the practice, as the township has no current engineering standards or policies in place. So it does make it very challenging to review and approve any of these applications and permits that come through. So there's a good framework, as some people would say, a bad plan is better than no plan. At least you can revise and move forward as things evolve. There's going to be there's starting to be a lot of development, there's going to be a lot more development within the township over the next 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. So doing the same old thing may not be the best case. The mutual agreement drains, I know they're actually not new. They've been around for a long time. The Drainage Act is a tried and tested true piece of legislation that works very well. There's been several instances since I've been here where drainage and lot drainage has been very problematic, and it's very difficult for me to be able to simply respond that it's a civil issue and there's nothing that I can do to help them. So I'm intent of trying to put something like this in places so that the people that are involved, the residents and the landowners that are involved in these developments going forward are protected. So the land purchases, we don't really own the land, we rent the land, and it's not perpetual ownership. So in the case of a family that severs off a lot for a daughter or a son, and we don't need to worry about drainage because it's our child, well, parents move on, they pass away, children get divorced, and then we have landowners that no longer agree or want the water. There's several, I mean, I could probably rhyme off 12 to 15 cases that I've had to deal with in the short time that I've been in this position with drainage issues throughout the township. Not so much because of anything, I wouldn't want to say it's a poor decision, it's just lack of knowledge, no policies in place, and it's perpetually being carried forward. So the intent is to fix or get better, learn from past and move forward in a positive light so that we could support drainage. The other benefits of the mutual agreement drain, this municipality, sorry, scratch that. This municipality, everybody works very well together, lives together. So when you have these rural subdivisions, you're buying into a community and everybody has a mutual agreement to share the water and maintain the properties. And all that onus isn't going back onto the municipality because we have several rural subdivisions now where we do have problems and we do spend money either not annually because we don't have the money, but for example, there was a subdivision in Lynn that we spent approximately $18,000 this year doing some ditch cleanup because we own the ditch and manage all the drainage for that subdivision. So if I could ask you to take back the policy and the bylaw to review and digest it more, it's a lot to take in for a weekend, but what I would like is direction for the prior subdivision. And if we could actually review that more in detail, because what they have proposed is going to put an undue burden on the municipality with the stormwater. If you look at attachment, the last attachment was the actual proposed stormwater plan. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with looking at these. For context, for the last 20 years, I've done everything from survey these to design them and review them from basically Belleville to Pembroke to the Quebec border. So I have pretty average knowledge of this, I guess I would say. But if you look at the attachment, the way they have it designed and proposed is the road water is going to exit through lots and into the backyards. So in a 10 or a 15-year storm event when there's flooding, we're going to be inundated with phone calls from residents because my backyard's flooded, you need to fix this. But it's designed to do that, but most people don't understand that, and we're going to get the call. Now, the other thing that's not super clear, but there's these little square blocks in the swale that we're going to own, and they're actually berms, rock check dams, berms to hold back the water. So it's being utilized to, and they're called enhanced grass swales, and it's to remove suspended solids in the stormwater before it enters into the downstream, which is it's a fantastic idea. It's a great plan. However, it's an issue when residents aren't fully educated in what their purpose is and what they're doing. Then everybody starts taking them out, and then all of a sudden all the water is running much faster than it was originally intended to, and or the some of the slopes that they have proposed are 0.3%, which is pretty near flat. So then we're going to get calls to come in. You need to drip ditch this out. The water's not getting away. Well, it's not designed to get away. The idea, what I would like to see for direction for this particular subdivision, is that we ask them to not put the road water through the side yards and into the rear, to keep all the road water separate and have it go out to County Road 46, County Road 20, well, not 20, sorry, County Road 46 and Foster Hall Road. Keep our water separate, and then ask for front to back lot drainage. So all of each individual's lot's waters goes to their backyard swale, and they all have communal ownership over that, and then it exits slowly out to the road and is carried away. Sorry, I might have rambled on a little bit about it.
No, it's just, you're right. It's a lot to absorb for sure. But to our CAO.
Just wanted Mr. Metcalf to talk about the wetland area.
Oh, yes, right. So as part of the proposal, if you can see the attachment, it says open space wetland. That's what they'd like to turn over to the township for parkland. But there's a small dashed line with a 30-meter dimension line to it. So there's only a very small sliver that's actually buildable because it's classified as wetland. So you're not allowed to build within that envelope. So they want to deed that to us. I don't recommend taking it. I would recommend that we take cash in lieu of parkland, because there's nothing we can do with it. It's just become a liability, and it basically is going to act as the stormwater retention pond, which we don't want to have to maintain, because could be, in this case, it won't be, well, it's going to be significant, but over the 20 to 25 year lifespan, it could be anywhere from $80,000 to $120,000 to maintain this stormwater facility.
Okay, so I may need help from my CAO in terms of how we separate this out, because I couldn't agree with you more that this is not a one-night decision. In terms of establishing a new policy and a new direction around this. But I don't think that's something that, quite frankly, I think we need some stakeholder engagement, some public engagement, and so on. Like it's sort of, in my mind at least, it's that level of policy shouldn't just be a stroke of the pen thing. But I'm very sensitive to the fact that the prior subdivision has been held up for some time, not just because of this, but we want to see development. So I couldn't agree with you more that we need to separate that out, deal with that this evening if we can, and the rest I see as being a multi-step process. But we'll see how the discussion goes. So I'll open the floor for discussion, and I'll see how we corral this into something productive. Councillor Downey.
So how does the township approach it right now? You mentioned road water, and then you mentioned yard water, slope to the back. Is that not the case with existing subdivisions? Why do we get the calls? In other words, right now, are we on the hook for the yard water? Because no matter what happens, we definitely have to deal with the road water, right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, Councillor Denny. So we're not on the hook now, and as I think council is aware from other subdivisions where residents have contacted you, the general consensus is that we look after water, but we look after it once it gets to the roadway. But what happens in the yards is a civil matter, or on private property if it gets dealt with. And it's a misconception that the township looks after drainage. I mean, I've had conversations with people wanting us to reroute ditches because they want to be able to use their property, and I've had to have the candid conversation with them. That's not corporation's responsibility to drain your land so that you can use it. That's not what our mandate is. Like, we don't, if you get it to the roadway, then we convey the water. That's kind of what we do.
So how would the mutual agreement that you're discussing or the policy, how would that change that?
Mr. Mayor, through the Councilor Downey, it puts in basically a perpetual mechanism so that everybody has a legal entitlement to have water pass across somebody else's property. So then when we get the calls, we can say, well, look, it's on, and it's going to be registered on title. So when the property is transferred or purchased and sold, they will be made aware of that. And then, so if resident A decides to fill in the ditch or put in a fence that blocks the drainage, then resident B can say, well, no, you can't, because I have an easement across your property for my waters.
Anybody else? Counselor Smith?
Thank you. So has the prior subdivision been approved?
No, so Mr. Mayor, through you to Councilor Smith, it's had a second application for draft plan approval. So there was an application made in 2021, and there was some concern with the application, and it changed, and then they've reapplied in 2024.
So, I'm just curious. Why would we call this a storm management bylaw, grading and drainage policy? And mention that individual subdivision name? Why wouldn't we just make it generic?
Want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this was a little bit, for want of a better description, a little bit cart before the horse. That's probably not the most apt description, but the policy rose to the surface because I was approached by Mr. Pryor regarding the direction that we were taking with our comments as a commenting agency on the subdivision approval, because the subdivision approval happens at the county level. So we were a commenting agency, and we provided these comments or comments along this line. And so when I became aware of it, I had a conversation with our CAO, and I said, well, this feels much more like a policy discussion than an application type comment. If this is going to be a significant change in direction over what the township has traditionally done in the past, that's the very type of thing I think council should be involved in deciding, are we comfortable taking that new direction? So there's sort of two things at work here. There's the prior subdivision, which is awaiting our final comments. And I think our staff can't give those comments until they get direction from us. Are we comfortable taking this direction? And then there's the much broader high-level policy discussion that I don't think is going to be resolved in one or even two nights. As I said, I think that this is something that requires some engagement and thought. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think it would be bad to just stamp it and say we're done with it tonight.
And to follow up on your comments previously, with public engagement, yes, because we did have some pushback from the residents over there when it started this process back in 2021. And if I'm counting the number of homes, I think it's 36 in this lot subdivision.
Yeah, I think it started off at 37 and the final design ended up, I think you're right, at 36.
You know, like, are we able to, are we capable of taking all that runoff of water, and I'm sure the residents are gonna have concerns, like other residents around the area will have concerns about, also, as we all know, the well.
Mhm.
So, to rubber stamp this, no. I'm sure there's other things that's gonna take place with this subdivision before it's even get approval, but I don't disagree with a storm management bylaw, grading and drainage policy. Ourselves having a policy, I would not put the prior subdivision included in that. For the simple reason of some of the comments that staff have made. You know, some of our counselors around here, we do listen to the residents with their drainage issues. So I guess I don't have a problem going into some kind of a policy, but I'm not gonna just pass a policy just for the prior subdivision.
No, and I don't think that was the intention. I think it was, we have a real world example that has prompted the policy to come into the spotlight. But I don't think it was ever the intention to have the specific subdivision baked into the policy.
Okay, so can you, fourth lot, and that council approve the draft plans conditions for the prior subdivision.
Yeah, so the draft plan conditions are separate from the overall policy. They may conform. So in other words, that same line of thinking that has driven the development of the policy would apply to approving the draft plan conditions. But they're two separate issues, very much related, but they are two separate issues. If you want them broken out and voted on, as separate motions, we could consider doing that. But just to help clarify the mechanics of it, it was never the intention to have the specific subdivision baked into the policy. But that's the other way around. Here's the overall thinking of the policy. And by the way, here's the way it plays out in a real world example that's in front of us. Mr. Metcalf?
There were comments submitted to the county for the prior subdivision that outlined basically a really Coles Note cut down draft version of not the policy, but of just the strict requirements to get away from having the road water into the backyards. And they want to turn over the easements to us so that we own it, so that stays locked in the MAD mutual agreement drain. So that stays with the property owners. We don't take that. Because the best time to do the mutual agreement drain is when one person owns it. And they're going to subdivide this all through one, instead of trying to get 36 people on board. Like
So I agree.
So yeah, so there's three pieces to this. And yeah, unfortunately, I need to have direction for the conditions that we've submitted to prior subdivision to confirm with the county so that that process can continue on. It's unfortunate for Mr. Pryor. He's kind of caught in the middle vacuum. And if everybody recalls, there was one recently, Pleasant Lane, that got caught in the vacuum of a change in how things were done. And Public Works and Planning worked very hard with those individuals to push those that plan of subdivision through with their severances with the lot developments. And we're trying to do the same thing in this case. It's just we don't want to take on the liability. We don't think you should take on the liability. Sorry, it's not me.
Okay, Councillor Downey and Councillor Ultra.
To help me understand it a little bit more, there's one example of a road that I know right now, which is Maplewood Drive.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be, there's always problems with drainage on that particular road. And if I believe there's a swale that's supposed to take that water away to the east or the west.
Yep.
To the west. And the complaint, there's complaints all the time, and they're directed towards the township. And I think that swale becomes overgrown. That's one of the problems. So how would this policy be different than what's happening on Maplewood Drive?
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor, that's a perfect example. Thank you very much for bringing it up. Maplewood subdivision is an interesting one because there's 4 unopened road allowances, and we don't do maintenance on unopened road allowances. So we don't do any ditching typically. We shouldn't be, but the guys actually do go out and do things. The swale, the outfall for all that subdivision is on private property. We have no legal right to it. That's the natural force of the water flow through there. If we had this policy in place, we would ensure that, because at one point in time, I believe those properties were actually one property. And it's one stage of a development, because that's why there's two legs on each side, east and west, to connect future subdivisions. So that's actually a phase 1. If in 30 years ago, when that was first started to be put in place, we had something like this in place, we would have ensured that we had that proper path of drainage in all these agreements, and we wouldn't be fielding these complaints, because we could say, go back to your homeowner's package or go back to your title. You've got an agreement in place, a standing agreement that allows you to drain, and then you need to work with your neighbor to make sure that it's flowing properly.
Okay, Councillor Ultra.
There's a lot of good things in this, and I appreciate the work in trying to be preventative for the future, because water's an issue that I don't think we want to deal with, and it's like owning a condo. Everybody's got to be responsible for the final result, for the common areas, and each subdivision on its own has to take full responsibility long term. And so from a little bit that I understand, I think there's a lot of good here, and I'd like to follow your lead on this. And when it comes to the prior, like I drive by, is the land not level, like even the ditches on the road, like can we find enough slope there without hitting bedrock?
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councilor Trapp. How we get into some engineering, heavy engineering.
Yeah.
I believe that's gonna be a lot infill. It is pretty close to rock. So that's, I think, part of the reason why they're trying to propose these very, very low sloping ditches
Yeah.
with the rock check and enhanced grass swales. It checks off all the boxes for the conservation authorities and the water management stuff, which is great. But it is a maintenance nightmare. And those are the concerns that I have. And so, yes, they can make it drain, but it's just gonna take a bit of fill. But I also would like to follow up to your point about the individual lots being responsible for. If there was nothing here, the water dissipates on a natural course and everything's good. We're disturbing that natural balance, but to create homes, because everybody wants that, and that's, we're all for it. But each individual, guys, to create those spaces, each individual lot owner, you didn't just buy a postage stamp and everybody else has to worry about the water. It's, you need to take the responsibility. We're making this space for you. This is what we're going to do going forward. It's going to be a community effort. Everybody's going to be involved in it. Everybody has the same rights on the same block, and the water is dealt with in an appropriate manner.
Okay. All right, anybody else? All right, so I'll weigh in with a few comments. I feel very schizophrenic on this particular topic. There's a lot to like, for sure. I worry about unlike a condo corporation, there are only things that you're agreeing to on title. So by way of the purchase, you agree to the arrangement, but there's no actual body like a condo corporation to oversee that the maintenance is done. So it creates a situation in my mind where we can foresee friction happening between neighbors to get things resolved. And then my mind comes back to, I understand why we don't want to be dealing with water because it's difficult to deal with and it's expensive, but people pay taxes and we're sort of the ideal people to be that condo corporation that doesn't exist. So I don't want to be taking on expenses on behalf of the taxpayers unnecessarily, but I worry about the unintended consequence of if the municipalities around us are not taking this approach. And I realize you cited some, North Granville, some others, but in general, if the perception is that it's much easier to do business in municipality A, B, or C around us, and it's now difficult to do business in Elizabethtown-Kitley, then what we enjoy as a 1% annual growth right now may drop to a 0.5% or what have you. So there may be some unintended consequences to taking what is perceived as a more difficult route. Hence my desire to make sure that plenty of public engagement, as much for education as anything else. So what I'm struggling with is if I put myself in a proponent's position, happens to be Mr. Pryor in this case, but like we wanted to anonymize the tenders and so on. Proponent A, the plan that we have in front of us, that application was made with a certain set of rules and a certain understanding of where the goalposts were and everything else. And now we're very near the end of the game. And now it seems to me like we're introducing some new goalposts. So that's an aspect of this I'm a little bit uncomfortable with. Yeah, it puts me in an awkward position to even render a decision on the prior subdivision. Quite honestly, if I was forced to do that tonight just to get on with it and so we weren't dragging things out for Mr. Pryor, I'd be inclined to say I really don't like the moving of the goalposts at the last minute. So use this as a learning opportunity. Let this be the last thing that we take on that maybe ideally we shouldn't. I lean a little bit more that way than saying it at the last minute, oh, here's something new that you didn't know you were going to have to conform to. That's where I'm at on this. I don't know whether that influences anybody else on council, but it's a great conversation to have. It's a great direction to explore and maybe even land on. I'm not sure that it's treating Mr. Pryor fairly because it's such a dramatic change in what he would have expected. But that doesn't have to be the final word. I welcome any further comment. Councillor Brayton.
Thank you. You talk about moving goalposts. Member of my family severed a lot over a year ago. And the goalpost is moved every month between the counties the township and conservation authorities and this and that and the other thing, and he still hasn't got nothing done, and this is over a year ago, and it seems that, and you say moving, you don't like to move goalposts, everybody else does move. And it just seems to me that it's a crime leading somebody on and then pay so much money and then, no, you gotta go somewhere, do something else, and then reach in your pocket and get some more money out. And that seems to be, to me, all about money. And I just try to, I'm ranting just a statement, but that's how things is moving goalposts. And it's nothing new. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Downey?
In this particular case, can the township not come up with, well, what our public works manager is telling us is that it's a recipe for problems down the road. So we're basically trying to catch this before it becomes a problem, but I'm not sure if there's any way that we can involve Mr. Pryor, because I can see where you're coming from too. We don't really want to slow down in land development and keep putting up obstacles in the way of developers. But if we foresee problems before we do any final approvals, should we not be dealing with them?
Oh, yeah, to clarify, I agree with the recommendations to change the flow of the water so that the road water is drained out to the roads, not to the back swale and that type of, I'm 100% behind that. But I guess the aspect that I'm feeling a little uncomfortable with is this new approach of making each individual property owner responsible for taking on the burden of litigating with their neighbor to get their neighbor to put back a feature of the swale that was designed to filter out the sediment and that type of thing. That is the aspect that I'm a little bit uncomfortable with. And I think council should be having that discussion is, you know, are we comfortable tonight saying, oh, this is when we stop doing that, regardless of whether we've gone through a full public engagement for the policy and so on. Essentially, what we would be saying is, yeah, we kind of like the new policy and we're going to apply it to Mr. Pryor. So I'm sorry if it wasn't clear. I like the changes to the mechanics of the drainage that have been suggested. I'm 100% behind those. I'm just leery of the condo corporation-esque approach without any overseeing body. You just leave it to each individual landowner to sort of, you know, fight with their neighbors to get what they need. But,
Sorry.
Metcalf?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just to, I guess I apologize for interjecting, but just want to make a point of clarification. So whether we actually put these conditions in this subdivision or not, it would be in a subdivision agreement. So whatever is the built plan will have to be enforced. So like there's subdivisions around that have had issues and it's going to litigation. So now each individual has to go to a lawyer. This stops that part of that process or makes that process easier so that they don't have to necessarily go to a small claims court and involve the township in debating whether, well, okay, they took the berm off of their property, now I get more water. Well, we go back to them and say, this is what it's supposed to be built to, not our problem. Right, we're trying to prevent that problem. And putting in the policy and these statements, there's actually no real cost for Mr. Pryor to put in the mats to protect the future owners. So that it shouldn't stop development. And the policy and the bylaw actually makes it easier for developers because they know what they're coming to. We didn't move the goalpost. There was no goalpost. It was just coming forward. Hey, yeah, sure, build here. So we're trying to, like, he hasn't got approval. He's in the process of getting draft approval. Hey, I don't disagree with the whole system and having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to the thing and say, yeah, sorry, we don't want your development. No municipalities can do that right now. However, I've been in the process before and there's a lot of struggles and a lot of hurdles. And yes, maybe the province could change that. That's a whole thing that's outside of my purview, but I don't disagree with it. Maybe having to be looked at if you want to speed these up. But in this case, what we need to do is make sure that we're protecting the residents now and in the future for the water. There is provisions in there that it can be that NI would be reviewed at a 5-year interval by the township, and then the cost would be tacked back down to the the affected residents, kind of how the municipal drains are work now. When the work is undertaken, then there's a calculated benefit, everybody pays their share. Mr. Oosterhoff, Councilor Oosterhoff should be able to speak clearly to that.
Mhm. And so as a follow-up question then to you, hopefully council finds this of interest as well. And maybe our CAO that should better be would be in a better position to answer this. If it comes down to why should all the taxpayers pay for the costs associated with work that will only benefit 36? I understand that concept, but can we not then, just like we charge a fee as a special levy to the people in the north end that benefit from curbside pickup? Can we not simply be the police of this quote unquote, charge a special levy to make sure that the maintenance of these swales that's required is done, so that we're proactively dealing with this issue rather than, again, leaving it for the property owners that have every right, but to then have to pay after the fact? I'm just wondering if that's an option that ultimately we can explore as part of this policy. Do either of you have any thoughts on that?
Through your worship, consulted with the finance director.
Sure.
It appears, or we would consider that's possibly something that we could put a special levy on. We would probably want to confirm that before we went ahead and sort of made that a final decision.
Right.
But we have done, we are going to do that with waste. We're do that with any water, the water system. So yes, if there's a particular benefit. Now, I think it would be a little hard to manage multiple special levies that were, for every subdivision that came along, it would be challenging for the finance department to manage those. So
Right.
You probably don't want to get too many special levies like that.
Okay. Councilor Elstraff?
To continue with what you were proposing or want to talk about, but even it'd be a labor issue for our staff to manage these things ongoing. Like, we need more staff if we encourage more housing developments, if we're gonna be responsible for the clean out of ditches on private property to keep water flowing there. Like, our challenge will be just to keep the ditches on the road going. And I think this is actually the right time, like I said, that the property developers raise the height of all the properties or whatever it is to get height, because when we built our barn, like 30 acres, you never saw a puddle anywhere. You built a barn that's 400 by 150. We got puddles now. It takes a day for the water to disappear off the roof. There's a lot of roofs here now that those owners don't want the water in those basements. It's gonna have to go away. And that's every rainstorm, every melt. You don't want it in those spots where nature took care of it for 100 years or 1,000 years, and now all of a sudden we got these rooftops and driveways. Like I said, I'm not into property development, and I understand the desire for it to grow, and we need more homes in this area. But from dealings from staff reports over the last 3 years, dealing with water issues is one of the most difficult things, because it's coming from one owner to another, and there's two upset people, and that's tough. Like, just dealing with people, relationships that have water issues, because it doesn't take long for water to cause damage. And so being preemptive is really important, but also minimizing what we're physically responsible for when it comes to our staff, because we have a limited amount of staff, a limited budget, and how many hours we can put in. I mean, we still need work on these gravel roads. So I mean, I just thought I'd drop that. And
So nicely done.
So I really like to think that our planners and people that want to do these projects understand the long-term, that they have to be involved in the long-term solution of water control.
Okay. Councilor Smith?
Thank you, Your Worship. So, from what I'm hearing from Mr. Metcalf, so this is still in draft. He doesn't even have approval. yet.
Mr. Mayor, through you, Councillor, he doesn't even have draft approval yet.
No,
This is to
okay.
get to draft.
Okay, so, and we're trying to prevent what this municipality has inherited from many developers over many years. And so by doing this, what prevents Mr. Pryor to say that the municipality, it's now your ownership? How do we stop that? So for example, I'm gonna say Lynn Heights, okay, the developer builds a subdivision and all of a sudden the municipality takes it over. Ray Lynn. Okay, so how do we prevent that?
Mhm.
Because if then it's gonna fall back on the municipality, then to go back in and clean out everything. That's what I'm trying to get at. So Mr. Pryor is the developer.
Mhm.
I'm looking at option number one. So, you know, so it says adoption of the storm management bylaw, lot grading and drainage policy and related draft plan conditions. Has no immediate financial impact on the township's operational budget. All design, construction, inspection, and long-term maintenance costs to the SWM systems will be borne by the developer and the benefiting lot owners. What I'm trying to say is that where the buck stops, or is it ever gonna come back to the municipality to the ownership?
With the intent, with the conditions that would be part of the draft and built into the subdivision agreement. And having the MADs in place, it'd be registered each individual property, so there shouldn't
Okay.
be any recourse back to
Okay.
the corporation. That's the intent.
Okay, so I think going back to one of the other comments that were made by my colleagues is that. Okay, so this is only a draft, is doesn't even have an approval for draft yet. So, you know, we gotta do something. We wanna be proactive instead of reactive like we have been. And like I said, I have no problem going ahead with this storm management process. I just will not approve the prior subdivision one, but as a policy, I think we need to have that policy, and then you can incorporate that into your subdivision. Policy or bylaw or whatever the case may be.
But just wanted to clarify something, because earlier, I think you said that you thought that there needed to be a public engagement and so on. So I'm assuming I misunderstood what you just said, that you'd be in favor of approving the policy so that we'd be proactive, just not for the prior subdivision one.
Correct. I think there still needs to be a public engagement based on the number of homes over there. If those residents have a feel that they may think they're gonna be flooded out, or maybe implications on their property on their properties.
Okay, now I realize that you may have misunderstood me. I was thinking that there needs to be a stakeholder and public engagement process around
This policy,
around the policy and, you know, do we like it? And, you know, because it extends, as it's been presented, it extends right down to an individual severance. So, you know, is that something that we're comfortable with? That's what I mean by, you know, I don't think that's a decision
okay,
we're in a position to make tonight.
okay, no, okay,
Mr. Metcalf?
Sorry, just
so
to
that was only subdivision.
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Smith, just to follow up and hopefully clarify. The public consultation for this has already been completed, so we're just, because it's at the county level, we're just a commenting agency. So there won't be a public consultation for the stormwater management like that.
No.
Whether you guys agree or pass this these conditions tonight. What'll happen tomorrow is if you don't agree to these tonight, I'll go back to the county and say no comment from the township, and it'll start moving, and that'll be it. Or I'll go back, council would like these conditions move forward, or some version of these conditions, and then it'll be put into the draft agreement, and then it'll go forward. There's the public consultation piece for this. Passed.
For his planned subdivision.
Yes.
For his, yeah.
Now, somebody asked earlier, might have been Councillor Downey, who asked, is there a way to involve Mr. Pryor in this conversation? I'll go back to staff. Is there a mechanism for that or not at this point? I'm thinking probably not.
Mr. Mayor, through you to council. No, I believe it's at the county level. Like,
Right.
any correspondence with Mr. Pryor goes down through the county. Again, we're just a commenting agency at this point because it's their process.
All right, so I'm getting a sense that we have at least a consensus, however weak or strong it may be, that we like this approach. And staff should feel free to make these the comments of the township as they've been presented here. There's been no discussion around the wetland, turning over the wetland as the parkland. Just want to make sure that we have an opportunity to discuss that before, we pass the motion. Councillor Osterhoff?
Is that an official document off, or is that just a word of mouth thing through staff? Like,
I think these would be our comments back to the county to say, look, the township is not interested in receiving useless land as a park. Essentially, I don't know if it would be quite that frank, but
We can't put anything on, like.
Yeah.
online.
Exactly. And so we would be requesting the payment in lieu of parkland
Yeah.
rather than ownership of the stormwater retention pond, essentially. But that's feedback that staff need to know.
I'd be content with that response.
Okay. All right, Mr. Metcalf?
Mr. Mayor, sorry, I will have to revise the prior subdivision plan comments back to, because it references the lot grading drainage policy, which we're tabling and pulling off, so it'll be slightly revised, so it doesn't reference that, but.
Right. Great. All right, any other comments? Now, I'll remind council that the way it is right now, it's an all-encompassing motion to adopt the proposed stormwater management bylaw and so on, and also approve the draft plan conditions for the prior subdivision. So based on what I heard, I'm suggesting we probably need to break those out and deal with them as two separate motions, but maybe not. Councillor Downey?
I think so.
I'd be inclined to do that too, because it's a lot to think about in one motion. I think we should try and split it up.
Okay.
Because it doesn't really apply to the prior subdivision, everything that's in that motion.
Okay, to our CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I would agree, both the stormwater management bylaw and the lot grading and drainage policy should be deferred to a meeting in January. That just gives council an opportunity to review it or have a chance to digest it, and then you can come back and have a fulsome debate about it and make any suggestions to staff. The other two, it would be in terms of receiving the report and also the draft plan of condition. It would be great if we could address those tonight.
Okay, so I guess what I'm going to do with a little bit of guidance perhaps from our deputy clerk. So the first operative clause to receive the report will remain. And I'm going to tie that in with the approving of the draft plan conditions for the prior subdivision as being the motion that we'll consider. So we will remove the references to adopting the proposed stormwater management bylaw and adopt the draft lot grading and drainage policy. We will deal with those separately as a deferral motion to a January meeting. Is that the way that you see that?
You wanna- Sorry, are you asking to pull them or to amend it?
Amend the motion, because right now it's an
Okay.
all-encompassing motion, so I'm
So-
suggesting we amend to remove those two center ones. And
Yes.
then process that separately as a deferral to January.
You could put you could pass a motion to amend the resolution.
Yeah.
To pull those 2 points.
Yeah.
To defer them to, and then give a specific date.
Right.
And then it's all done in one, because it would leave those 2 points left.
So you're comfortable with a motion that will both amend and defer all in one motion? CAO?
Thank you, Your Worship. My preference would be that you deal with each of those as separate motions,
Okay,
so that it's cleaner rather than trying to combine them. Our manager of Public Works has asked that the motion related to prior subdivision include.
Yeah, sorry, if I may, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
so
please go ahead.
if you can be very specific with it, so that we're gonna ask, or support my recommendation that the road water stay separate from the private lot water and not enter into regards. You don't take the wetland or open space, and that the draft plan conditions as previously received from Public Works be adopted. It's very similar to this, it's just I revised it to follow the policy as presented tonight.
okay, I'm just making some notes here.
Just the county's gonna want very clear direction
Yeah.
and know that I have support from council.
Right, so the road water to be directed to the roads, not to the rear swales. Payment in lieu rather than accepting the wetland. And what was your third point that you wanted to be explicit?
That they'll enact the MAD agreements and the comments previously received, and which I have a copy of the motion. I didn't include them in the report. This is the motion.
Okay, well, you're looking for that, Councillor Edie?
Just one, I'm a little bit confused. Why are we having an issue approving something that's proactive and proper?
Well, I think we've talked our way through it and that's what I
I'm
heard
still
from
not
council
getting it.
is that that's what we want to do with the prior subdivision. That's exactly what Mr. Metcalf's talking about. He wants to see the road water diverted into the road ditches, not into the existing road ditches, not the rear swale. He's suggesting the council would like payment in lieu of parkland rather than accepting the wetland as the parkland.
Mhm.
And that we apply the mutual agreement drain approach to the
Okay.
remaining drainage.
It's going with it.
Yeah, well, and this is what we're working through the mechanics of getting to the point where we can pass that motion to do exactly that.
Gosh darn, okay,
Okay,
sorry.
Madam Deputy?
I changed and I reneged, so the amendment is to amend resolution, the number 41025.
Yep.
To break the 4 points into 4 individual resolutions.
Right.
And then I'll have to re-prepare.
Yep. Okay.
And then when you get to that last one, you can either do a friendly amendment or you can amend the wording.
Okay.
Oof.
Yes, okay, I'll go, yep, I have a thought by the time we get there. All right, so, if I could, I would entertain a mover and seconder for an amendment to break each of those into 4 separate motions.
Okay.
Yes, Councillor Brayton?
I got a question, is that deferred? Is all this deferred?
No, so what we're gonna do is, let's assume that the amendment passes, that we're gonna break it into 4 separate motions.
Oh, you're not going to defer?
No, well, 2 of them we are, so we're gonna receive the report.
Yeah.
We're gonna defer number 2 and number 3 presumably.
Yeah.
And number 4 is to actually deal with the prior subdivision.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
so I'll entertain a mover and seconder for an amendment to break each of these 4 clauses of resolution 410-25 into individual motions. So, okay, thank you, Councillor Brayton and Councillor Smith. Any discussion on that? Okay, Councillor Downey?
Okay, so the first 2 parts of what you just mentioned, I'm fine with. I still don't understand. So the mutual drain agreement between the homeowners, we're going to use that language in our comments. But that's the part that we really haven't come to a policy decision on. So how does that get us in any trouble?
It's a good question. Ideally, we would have rolled this out as a policy first, and this would have come along, we would have had a policy to refer to. That's not the luxury in front of us. Mr. CAO, do you see any risks involved in taking this approach?
Through your worship, I don't think so. So the policy is simply something for the future to say when a developer comes to us, here is our policy or here's our bylaw, this is what we are expecting of you. It doesn't mean that we can't put that expectation on somebody now. So this is the policy and the bylaw will just be clear going forward, what we are expecting from anybody who's gonna do a severance or a subdivision application. Whereas right now, we're saying to the proponent of this subdivision that we're expecting a mutual agreement drains as part of the conditions of subdivision.
Does that help, Councillor Down?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's make another note here. All right, so we have the motion to amend on the floor to split this out into separate motions. So that amends this motion into something very different, doesn't it? It does, but I don't see a choice. Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, if you want to deal with them individually, you have no choice but to break them out.
Nope, exactly. Okay, fair enough. All right, so any final discussion on breaking that up? Okay, I'll call that question then. All those in favor of breaking that into 4 separate motions? And opposed if any? Okay, so that does carry. So now, I'll deal with the really easy one first. So the motion is that report PW-25-34 be received. I need a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Smith. I'm gonna give our deputy a chance to make sure that I don't get too far ahead of her.
I got
All
that.
good? Okay, all those in favor of receiving the report? And opposed, if any? Okay, that carries. Thank you. So the next motion would be the council adopt, the council defer the decision regarding adopting a stormwater management bylaw until what is our January meeting? I think our first one's,
Monday, the 12th or Monday, the 26th?
I'm gonna suggest the 26th because I think they're gonna have budget and some other stuff to deal with in the first one. All right, so the stormwater management bylaw will be deferred until the January 26th meeting. So move or seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Smith. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Another very similar motion, the council defer further discussion regarding adopting a draft lot grading and drainage policy until the January 26th meeting of council. So I need a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Downey. My mouth is not working tonight. Any discussion on that deferral? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Still keeping up?
Yep.
Okay, and so now the original clause in the all-encompassing motion was to approve the draft plan according to the policy that we've not yet adopted. So we can't really do that one. So in its place would be a motion that council approve staff's draft plan conditions regarding the redirection of road water, requiring payment in lieu of parkland rather than accepting the wetland, and enacting mutual agreement drains on title for the individual properties. Is that satisfactory? Okay. So you're deputy frantically scrolling here, so I'll just give her a moment and we can deal with it.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, go ahead, Councillor.
Does he get to tell us what lot that he would be giving us, or do we get to pick one?
Okay, I'm gonna pause that for just a second.
Yeah.
We need to get the motion on the floor, then we can start to debate it and answer the questions. So you're all set for me to get, okay, so I need a mover and seconder for that final motion. Moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Smith. Okay, thank you. So Councillor Brayton, based on the wording that's in the motion to require a payment in lieu of parkland rather than actually getting a specific lot dedicated, there is no lot to choose. We just get the money, and that wetland serves the purpose of a localized stormwater management basin, essentially. So there is no lot being conveyed to us.
I know, what, does he get to say this is your lot, or do we pick
No.
one, or?
No, there is no lot being given to us.
No, I know, but in another circumstances.
Oh.
If we were to say we want a lot.
Yeah.
Does he give us the worst one he's got, or does he, can we pick?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that tends to be, now, we don't have to accept it, but Mr. CAO, I think you have some past experience in this area as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, the municipality does not have to accept a particular lot.
But he gets to make the offer of
He
any
certainly
lot.
can, and this certainly happened in my previous role where a developer was trying to give the city what was effectively a rock knob and of absolutely no use, and the city just kept saying, no, we don't accept it, until he came back with a better offer of something else.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I just wonder.
Okay, all right, any other discussion around this one, the feedback for the prior subdivision? Okay, so I'll call the question on that one then. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Okay. All right, moving on to 6.3. This is a staff report with regards to the gravel road conditions. The motion is that report PW 25-35, gravel road conditions and public works response be received. I need a mover and seconder to get that on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Eady. Anything you wish to add, Mr. Metcalf?
Mr. Mayor, through you to council yourself. I guess this report resulted in poor road conditions experienced over a period of time. And I'd just like to, it's I hope it's clear in the report, but we had a trifecta of conditions that put us in a position where we didn't have very many options. I guess we'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. So I'll open the floor for a discussion, if any. Okay, not seeing any. And thank you for the report. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. All right, so then moving on to 6.4, this is a follow-up regarding winter control. So there's a little bit of mechanics around this one, given that we tabled a couple of these topics previously. So tonight, what we need to do is receive this report as information. Then with that information, we can bring the previous tabled item back and continue our discussion there. So with that, the motions at this point simply is that report PW 25-36 be received as information. Mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Eady, seconded by Councillor Smith. Anything you wish to add, Mr. Metcalf?
That is that.
Okay, so I'll open the floor for discussion. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Orford.
Those nights.
Yeah, through you to Mr. Metcalf. So I'm reading the third paragraph in the background where it says we're entering the 2025-2026 winter control season with a reduced fleet. What did we lose?
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Smith, the truck 9, we decided not to fix it. We disposed of it and we purchased a new truck. There was great lengthy debates. I want to say September. And we're at hope. Last we talked to the supplier, they originally said it's December 15th. Now they're saying December 19th. So probably leaning towards we're getting it in January, but we're subject to delivery.
Okay, so that will bring us back up to normal then, right?
Yes.
So really, we're not sure you're entering the season right now with a reduced fleet, and we're gonna have this vehicle hopefully by January 1.
Yeah.
Hopefully. And with your proposal of making adjustments to the plow routes, how do you feel that was going to be a better service to the municipality compared to what we've had in the past?
Mr. Mayor, through you, Councillor, if you could sort of clarify the question because I don't quite understand.
So you made adjustments to the plow routes. And I'm asking the question of making these adjustments, how's that bettering servicing the residents of this township compared to what our routes we had previously?
Okay, Mr. Mayor, through you, Councillor Smith, and to all the councils, I was prepared more for the bringing back of the temporary staff. The plow road piece was already passed and moved. So, I mean, I can address that, I guess, but this follow-up report doesn't speak to that. Mr. Mayor, your wishes?
I think the staffing complement is related to the routes, is it not? Because I sort of had an element of that interpretation as well.
Okay, so the staffing complement, the increasing, we'll be able to modify the contract plow routes to shorten those runs, so we're not paying so much per kilometer. But I don't know if Councillor Smith's question was alluding to revising the broader, all the plow routes. We went through a complete review, which was discussed in September.
Yeah. Okay, so
I'm not sure that's what his question is.
I think it may be Councillor Smith.
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out, based on what our fleet was previously, what we had contracted previously, and the service we provided to our residents. And so we're now getting into the idea of hiring a 6-month temporary equipment operator. And I think if I heard you right, you're reducing the contractor winter control, I'll call it that. Is that correct?
Sure.
And you feel that that's gonna still service our residents, as we had in the past. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, so I'm hearing that the staffing complement will offset the reduction in the contracts. And I'm gonna put some words in the public works manager's mouth. So for instance, as we've discussed before, the contracts involve standby fees, whether we use them or not, and that type of thing. So there's a value element being considered here in terms of having staff without detrimentally affecting the service. I think, was that a fair characterization?
Okay, so here's my follow-up. So I'm reading this and it says that standby rate for these two trucks were approximately 31,000 for the winter season. Okay. And then I'm looking at our financial implementations, okay? And I'm reading the bottom line, which is total winter control costs of $54,091.16. I'm trying to justify the 31,000 that we had two standby trucks versus, and if I'm reading this right, the 54,000 is what we would pay someone.
No, I won't think to our director of finance.
Thank you, your worship, through your worship to Councillor Smith. I think I can provide some clarification. So the financial summary there, you're correct. The actual contracted services that would be saved, which was previously incurred, is actually the first and second box, $28,783. The third box of $25,308, that's overtime of existing staff of the township that is being incurred. So what we are saying is when you take those three costs combined, it is $54,091.16 to establish what the total cost is. When we compare that to what is being recommended by staff, the 6-month operator, internal operator, the cost of that individual is $40,000. So therefore, what we are saying is that individual would be looking after what is already being incurred, the total winter control of 54,000. So it would result in a net savings of 14,000. However, as outlined in the report, and I just want to emphasize the caveat, that assumes there's no overtime, additional overtime. We cannot predict that just simply on winter conditions. We really don't know. So for purposes of this discussion, what we are saying is, so long as the overtime does not exceed what the projected savings is of $14,091, the recommendation of that additional 6-month body is cost neutral.
All right, thanks for that.
And I'm just going to follow up on where you ended, Mr. Director. So if we imagine a scenario in that unpredictability where additional overtime is required, that additional overtime, am I correct in thinking that additional overtime would still have been required even if we had gone with contracted routes?
In answer to your question, your worship and members of council, that is correct, sir.
So although the absolute numbers may be different, we may not realize a $14,000 saving absolute, but whatever our overage would have been, we're still going to be $14,000 better off in our overage than we would be in any scenario we may describe.
Absolutely correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, I got that nice and clear now. Okay, anybody else? Councillor Downing?
How long have we had the contractor routes? Anybody have
Forever.
forever?
Yeah, quite some time.
So at one point in time, we used to bring on temporary staff. And then did we go away from that, or did we increase our staff levels after bringing on temporary staff? Like, are we
We've always,
getting a net increase, or over the last, say, 15 years, or
we've always
are we
been,
not?
we've always had extra help in the winter.
I'm not 100% sure if the current staff will be able to answer that question, but I'll look to them just in case. I don't think we have that answer here tonight. I'd even hesitate to weigh into it myself. Simply because there have been so many changes in terms of, I think you want to know specifically about operators associated with the winter control operations.
Well, I know we used to bring on temporary staff every year.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering why this is a question. Is it a question because we have not increased our staffing levels, or is it a question because we want more staff above what we've normally had?
I think if you'll be satisfied with an answer that's relative to the more recent past, we may be able to provide you with an answer to that, but I don't think we could tonight on the spur of the moment provide you with a 15-year picture.
No, but I'm talking within 5 years.
Okay, so would staff be able to comment in recent years? I don't recall the org chart changing in the last few years.
We've always had.
Yeah, we've always had the temporaries.
Heck, you have the winter help.
Yeah, I'm going to say no. In the recent past, we haven't increased.
So last year we brought on a temporary and then let her go in the spring.
Yep.
I believe so,
We just brought one in, or
Mr. CAO.
And well, I think there was a temporary person brought in because we had a staff member on medical leave.
Yeah.
And so we brought somebody on a temporary basis just to cover for that, because we were that very short staff.
Right.
so we didn't actually bring on an extra person for winter control. But this year we are.
Yeah.
Planning to.
That's what the report is suggesting, and the savings that we're projecting under any scenario that we can describe is roughly 14,000 as a result of doing that.
Yeah, that part of it I get.
Alrighty, anybody else? All right, so I'll just remind you that when I call the question here, that's only receiving the information report. The next thing that we'll deal with is the original discussion that we'll bring back. So I'm going to call the question on receiving that report then. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Okay, so now if we want to make a decision on the original one, as we should, I have to entertain a motion to take from the table. So that is the table resolution number 365-25 be taken from the table. So I need a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Eady. I don't think there needs to be discussion on that one. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Okay, that carries. Thank you. All right, so the original motion was moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Renault. The report PW 25-33 be received, and the council authorized staff to proceed with hiring a 6-month temporary equipment operator for the 2025-26 winter control season. So having taken that off the table, that motion now is back on the floor, so we can continue our overall deliberation, folding in the information that we've just received. So any further discussion on that? Councillor Downey?
So now in the 20, is this going to affect our deficit? Or do we know?
Mr. Director?
Through your worship to Councillor Downey, at this point in time, looking at past years, it would not further impact our deficit because it would be bringing back or would be recovering costs that you would be incurring otherwise, or additional costs, which is outlined in the projected savings here, at least for November and December. The balance of that, at this point, that would be part of the 2026 budget.
So if we're lucky and Mother Nature doesn't do anything worse to us than what happened to us last year, we might actually improve our deficit a little bit. Is that what I heard in all that?
Through your worship to all of council, I'm not this be all of weather or of control, but I would say that's a fair assessment. And
Right.
and I'll defer to your colleague as well if he wants to chime in. At least the latest projections of weather models is it is the last 10 days of December where the weather may get dicey.
Okay, cool. All right, perfect. All right, anything else? All right, so then I'll call the original question then. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Okay, similarly, I think 6.5 is going to get handled the same way. That's also one that's coming back. So that is a follow-up, the request for the water tank upgrades. So the motion right now is that report PW 25-37 be received as information. So I'll take a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Eady. Mr. Metcalf, anything else? Okay, fair enough. So I'll open up the floor for discussion, if any, around the information report. Councillor Brayton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I made a statement when that first come up. We're going to be spending a pile of money in the near future. And I think every dollar we can have, and I can't see where buying a tank to use for 2 or 3 weeks of the year is going to benefit the township. I will not support it when it does come up, and I would like to see it withdrew and not be put in the budget. As far as I'm concerned, I think we have a dust control guy, and it's for dead end roads. I don't think that our dead end roads are that long. There's probably less than 50 kilometers of dead end road, and I don't see any use for it. I can't see a benefit for the township to have them.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, so I'll go ahead and call the question then on receiving the information report. All those in favor? Hey, and opposed, if any? That carries. Okay, so having that enhanced information, we really need to deal with the motion that we tabled the last time. So there's a resolution here that tabled resolution number 363-25 be taken from the table. I have a mover and seconder to do that. Okay, Councillor Osterhoff, and any seconder to Councillor Brayton. Okay, so all those in favor of that? And opposed, if any? Okay.
No,
all I was asking was to bring the motion back for consideration. So you're not voting on the tank.
Yeah.
You're only voting on bringing that motion back.
Yeah.
Okay, so that does carry. So the original motion, which is now on the table, was moved by Councillor Renault, seconded by Councillor Osterhoff, that report PW 25-32 be received, and the council authorized staff to proceed with securing the production of the meter controlled water tank with allocated funds to be carried forward to the 2026 budget. However, the report that we just received is changing that recommendation. So I will tell you that that we do have an alternate resolution prepared should the original one be defeated, that aligns with the recommendation that we received tonight in the information report. So that is council's option if you wish to defeat the motion that we just brought back. We can then consider a motion that deals with the revised recommendation. Madam Deputy?
That's actually a motion to amend the original. Because if you defeat it, you can't bring it.
Oh.
And then flip another page if they choose to amend it, there's your amended resolution.
Okay, fine. All right, so that was a reading of the original motion for an exercise. All right.
Well, because it's back.
So that motion is back on the floor. So that is the motion that's on the floor right now. If we wish to follow tonight's recommendation, then I need an amendment, which would be as follows. The council amends resolution 363-25 to withdraw the request to secure the production of the meter controlled water tank from the current carry forward request, and include the council gives the meter controlled water tank consideration during the 2026 budget deliberations. So to be clear, we're not approving the tank tonight. We would only approve having a discussion about it as part of the 2026 budget. Okay?
Yeah, I know.
So that's the amendment that is being suggested. If I can get a mover and seconder for that amendment. So Councillor Smith to move, Councillor Downey to second. Any discussion around the amendment? Okay, so I'll call the question on the amendment then. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you for helping to walk me through that. Okay, so the amended resolution now reads then that report PW 25-32 be received, and the council gives the meter controlled water tank consideration during the 2026 budget deliberations. That's now the amended resolution that's on the floor. I don't need a mover and seconder for it because there was a resolution already on the floor. Otherwise, we couldn't have amended it. Here's mud.
That as a report, PW 2537, right?
So, well, no, that was received as information. So the original motion is that the 25-32,
Last one?
correct, be
Okay,
received.
all right, that's fine.
And that now coming out of all of that, council's direction is to give the meter controlled water tank consideration during the 2026 budget deliberations. That's now what's in.
So I get another kick at the can.
Correct, yeah, that's right.
Hey,
All right, so any discussion around that motion tonight? Okay, so I'll call that question then. All those in favor? That carries. Okay, thank you. All right, that deals with 6.5. On then to 6.6. This is a report regarding the RFP for banking services. The motion is that council receive report F-25-25, RFP for banking services, and the council direct staff to proceed with the issuance of an RFP for banking services. And the staff report back to council in February 2026 with results of the RFP for banking services and recommendations. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Eady, seconded by Councillor Smith. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Your Worship, through council. Very briefly, this actually came up, I believe it was Councillor Oosterhoff at a prior council meeting had asked the question if we had ever tendered for banking services. And the report in front of you, the answer is no. We've stayed with the same financial institution now for 26 years, and there has been no tender at any point in time in the banking services. It is best practice, regardless of what any policy may or may not say, that procurement or tendering that takes place of contracts of this nature every 5 years. The last time that the banking services was reviewed was September 2017. The banking services or the banking requirements of the township over time have become much more complicated with various platforms of payments and integration with our particular software internally, citywide, and Munisoft, which drives our whole internal finance GL structure. So the recommendation, however, in front of council is for staff to proceed with an issuance with a bank tender. And included in there is a timeline of when this tender would take place in the evaluation. One thing I should point out as well, the current procurement policy actually excludes banking services that a tender is not required. However, I think for the spirit of transparency, although that's what the policy states, given the complexity and the potential dollars involved, I strongly recommend it's in the best interest of council to go through with a tender process regardless of the policy. And I also should mention, for transparency purposes, depending on the proponents who submit, if one financial institution in particular was to submit, I would have to exclude myself from the evaluation of that particular proposal for conflict of interest purposes. Outside of that, I'm prepared to answer any questions any councillors may have on the staff report in front.
So before I turn it over to council, just as a result of something you just disclosed, and thank you for that. Do you have a contingency plan that you can offer us so that we may benefit from experience similar to yours during the evaluation process if you were to have to recuse yourself?
Thank you. Through your worship to council, yes, I do have a contingency plan of an outside party who would be able to provide that expertise to council on the needs of the township with respect to the banking proposals, if in fact I do have to exclude myself for a conflict.
Okay, great. All right, so with that, I'll open up the floor for discussion, if any. Councillor Downey?
Would you say that there's no financial implications with the RFP, but have you ever gone through one of these recently? And is there the possibility of financial implications?
Through your worship to Councillor Downey, thank you for the question. I have in the past 5 years, I've gone through this on 9 occasions at both the municipal and in the private level. And at no point in time has there been any financial implication that has been negative financial implication that has been incurred by the issuer of the RFP. It's the intent of going through this is what the status quo is. We are looking for at the very minimum the status quo or something in addition that would actually reduce, positively influence any implications financially for the township.
Okay, so you say that our we become more complicated in the way we have to deal with banking. So what types of things would you see that would better the situation for the township?
So through your worship to Councillor Downey, one thing overarching, the current financial institution that we've historically dealt with, we have to go through 5 different platforms in order to access all of the services. It's not all on one platform. So for example, if we want to see the balances in our accounts, we have to use one platform they provide. If we want to issue payments, whether it's accounts payable or any payment, we have to go through what is called a CMO, which is another area, another platform. If we are dealing with the corporate Visa accounts, that actually is now subcontracted to a third party, which is a US-based financial institution. And we have to go through their platform for anything with Visa. The same if we are looking at potential investments, we have to go through a 4th platform. And then finally, with just the day-to-day record keeping of operations, whether it be bank statements or remittances, we have to go through a 5th platform. The point I'm making is that on its own is not satisfying our complexity. In fact, it's actually becoming inefficient, and it's negatively impacting us on daily operations costs, because instead of going through one portal, shall we say, we now have to go through 5 separate portals in order to get that information, as opposed to going through one point of contact online.
Okay, Councillor Osterhoff.
So saying that, do you believe others, a service provider could provide what you're looking for?
Through your worship, Councillor Oosterhoff, from my review and knowledge of the market, the current financial institution is the only one that has multiple platforms. All other financial institutions, and when I say financial institutions, I'm talking Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 financial institutions, all provide one consolidated platform.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, not seeing any, so I'll go ahead and call the question on that then. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Moving on to 6.7. This is a report regarding our benefits program. Motion is the council receive report F-25-26, transfer of township's benefit program. And the council approve the transfer of the township's benefit program to Canada Life effective February 1, 2026, at an annual cost of $210,345.36. And the council directs staff to proceed with signing a master agreement with Canada Life by December 31st, 2025. I'm looking for a mover and seconder to get that on the floor. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Smith. Mr. Director.
Yes, again, I think the report's self-explanatory, but just a few highlights I just want to bring out for emphasis purposes. As outlined in the report, as a reminder for all the councillors, employees of the township are provided full benefit coverage, which is 100% paid by the employer. This is reported as a taxable benefit on employees' T4s, and it must be claimed on their individual income tax. The last time the actual benefit program was reviewed was in 2020, and our current provider, who has been our provider since then, is Desjardins Financial. And what really got this conversation going organically, what started organically but then became something else, was when we received the renewal notice for the next year from our current benefits carrier, where they were increasing our benefits premium by 16.42%. So that meant that the benefit cost would increase on an annual basis from $198,800 to approximately $231,000. That conversation then led to another conversation, which I had with multiple other municipalities, some in our local and catchment area, on what does their benefit coverage outline. And it became clear that our benefit coverages are in the very low quartile of what is being provided out there by other municipalities primarily. And what that is because since 2020, as a result of COVID, whatever you want to say, there's been a dramatic increase in healthcare expenses. And the current benefit program, the limitations of coverage have not been changed to match that change in the market. And as a result, we're seeing that many staff are paying considerable medical and dental related expenses out of their own pocket over and above the coverage that is provided. So to give you an example, our optical, which is included within our medical coverage, provides for $200 towards a new pair of glasses. In referring to the industry average, but in talking more specifically with other municipalities, and for the record, the other municipalities that we talked with was Edwardsburg Cardinal. We talked as well at the county. We talked with the city of Brockville. We talked with the town of Smiths Falls, Lanark County, the town of Perth, and we even went as far up as into Prince Edward County and Quinte. And what they all came back was optical, for example, their coverage is anywhere between $650 and $1,000. The same, we found considerable discrepancies in other areas of the coverage. So for example, our coverage for other professional services, acupuncture, chiropractor, massage therapy, etc., is $500 for those services, whereas others are providing $500 per service that is required because some staff may require one or more services. The other thing as well that we went out to staff to get their feedback as well, and 82% of the staff responded, and it's outlined in the report. But the two major things, other than what I've mentioned, that staff came out with was increased coverage on the dental, especially those that have families, as you get into caps and braces, etc. The current dental program is capped at $2,500, whereas other programs are capping it at $5,000, or they're putting a lifetime limit of $10,000 for that particular service. And the other thing other program providers, municipalities are providing is short-term disability. We do provide long-term disability. However, up until that coverage takes place, from an employee would use their vacation and sick time. Once that's exhausted, then they would apply to employment insurance until long-term disability kicks in. Other providers or municipalities are providing short-term disability, so there is that no reliance. We went back to Canada Life when they were going to provide us with this increase and asked, there's additional things we'd like to consider. Or not Canada Life, sorry, Desjardins.
Okay.
Desjardins, our current carrier, did not want to even commit to providing additional coverages as we had requested to quote on. And it would not provide caps, as in number of years that they would cap the rate. So they could, this year is 16.4, next year it could be 23.5. I don't know. And that to council has dramatic financial impact. We then, through our broker, went out and we had two other companies who came forward that were interested. Number one was Canada Life. And Canada Life were prepared to not only provide everything that our current plan has, but they were also prepared to provide all of the additional coverages that we requested them to look at, as outlined in the report. And that resulted in an annual increase of $11,523, or $210,000, which, if you look at what the Desjardins were going to charge us with the increase, Canada Life is coming in $21,100 cheaper. And finally, Canada Life will give us a 3-year rate cap. So we know each year for the next 3 years, the maximum amount that benefits will go up regardless of utilization rates within various categories. The second category was Industrial Alliance. And Industrial Alliance is a good company, but it is based in the East Coast and it's just starting to make its way into the Ontario market. And it is more for municipalities and for not-for-profits. They were prepared to quote, however, they were not prepared to give us the additional. And what they quoted us in price was basically what Desjardins' rate was last year. And Industrial Alliance was prepared to give a 1-year cap guarantee on the rate. But again, after 1 year, it's one of these. we really can't predict. Whereas a 3-year cap, we're in good shape for 3 years, and it gives a chance for the market to regularize, for lack of better terms. So therefore, the recommendation in front is for council's consideration and approval to move our benefit coverages with the enhanced coverages that we have requested from the individual carriers to Canada Life for February 1st, 2026. What this will mean is we would be required to sign a master agreement by December 31st with Canada Life and give notification to Desjardins that we will not be renewing on February 1st, so that Canada Life can come in and do the transfer over to them, and they will actually come in and sign up all of our employees, so we know everybody has been done and done properly. And that way there is no interruption or disruption, I should say, to benefit coverages between the transfer of the two companies.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I'll open the floor for discussion, if any. Councillor Brayton.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that because if we benefits goes up, like we'll get quite a bit of salary money back too, eh?
I think the two things are not directly related in that way.
Oh?
No.
Okay.
No. Councillor Downey.
I think it's a great idea to get more benefits for less money.
Yeah.
But I found one phrase in your report interesting, and I'm wondering, why is there an increasing complexity of medical and dental needs in our employees?
So getting old.
I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean.
So if you look at historical, and I got this actually from our current broker, looking at the utilization rate, I'm sorry, through your worship to Councillor Downey. We did an analysis over the last 10 years of utilization rates and for what categories. And what we are finding is on what is deemed basic services. So I will say, I'll use dental, for example. Basic service is you're going in and you have a 6-month checkup. That's where the majority of utilization rates were. Over the past 5 years, since 2021, 2022, the utilization rates in other categories have tended to really spike. So for example, root canals, what is known as periodontal surgery, braces, dentures, different types of customized dentures. Didn't see that much utilization before. It was more the basic dental. So when I say complexity, the last 5 years, we're seeing considerable more uptake on the more complex type of dental services. The same can be said when you look at optical. Optical used to be just your eye checkup and maybe your glass lenses had to be altered a bit in prescription. But now what we're seeing now is we're seeing a lot more retinopathy. We're seeing a lot more utilization of what they call macular degeneration, of cataracts. And again, that's in the last 5 years since COVID. And it's not unique to just the Township of Elizabethtown-Kitley, and speaking to our counterparts in other municipalities, as the ones I had outlined, they're seeing the exact same spikes in non-traditional or non-basic type of services. So that's when I meant when I said complexity. If I gave off a different interpretation of that, I apologize, but it was more the usage of those more detailed types of services over and above basic.
So it's not just a Kitley, Elizabethtown thing.
No. Just as an aside, Councillor Down, one municipality I spoke to, when you talk about optical and you talk about macular degeneration, they've had a 92% increase in 3 years in the utilization of that type of procedure for optical.
I know all about that.
All right, anything else? Okay, I'll go ahead and call a question then on this one. All those in favor? Okay, carries. Good. Okay, 6.8, this is a mileage rate review. The motion is the council receive report F-25-27 mileage rate review. And the council approves from January 1, 2026, increasing the township's mileage reimbursement rate to the prevailing Canada Revenue Agency mileage rate. and that the township's mileage reimbursement rate be changed annually to maintain parity with the CRA mileage rate. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder to get that on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Osterhoff. You, Mr. Director, if you wish.
Yeah, just very quickly, one point I just want to add for additional clarification, and this is as a result of a question that was forwarded to me earlier today, is in the report, the cost, I've given a cost of what, based on year-to-date mileage for 2025, what that would translate to, and as outlined in the report, it's 53, 63, 53, 83, 56. Just for context, I also looked at the 2023 total mileage charge and the 2024 total mileage, just to see if there's an anomaly or if there's some consistency. And what I can tell you is, if you took the charge in 2023 with this increase, it would come out to $4,855 increase in 2023. And it would have come out to $5,101 in 2024. So that it's not an anomaly, and I just wanted to put that out there for some comparison of the 3 fiscal calendar years as to what the increase potentially could be moving forward in 2026.
Right, and again, for the benefit of the public, over the weekend in response to that same email by one of our members, I did a little bit of history on the CRA rate, and our current 51 cents falls somewhere between the rate that CRA published in 2007 and 2008. 2007 was 50 cents a kilometer by CRA. It went up to 52 in 2008. And then I provided a history of basically a linear increase in the CRA rate all the way up to this year at 72 cents. Council had reviewed and approved 45 cents back in 2008 when CRA was set at 52. And then the next time council approved a change, so we stayed at 45 cents for the ensuing years up to 2019, where we approved the current 51 cent rate when CRA was at 58 cents. And so here we are, at least we are not leaving it that same 11 years before reviewing it again. So we're getting a little bit better at that. All right, so with that, I'll open the floor for discussion, if any. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, for you to the Director of Finance. So I can probably answer my first question, the 13,000 and change total payout of mileage. It's not one particular department. It's several departments in total.
Through your worship, Councillor Smith, that represents the total mileage charge across the entire township, all departments, and including council.
So what I was trying to figure out is, is it worthwhile to, lease a vehicle for the municipality versus pay out the mileage? And previous councils back in the day, we've had this discussion and we figured out it was not viable. But as we know, we do have a department that is contracted out to other municipalities to do services for them, which is increasing the mileage, a couple of municipalities. So I was just curious if that would be something to consider, or I don't disagree that it's time to increase again the kilometer. I'm just trying to figure out if there was a benefit or not.
Through your worship, Councillor Smith, your point is well raised, and I have my opinions as to if it would be cost effective on what I know. But however, having said that, in working on the 2026 draft budget to be brought forward, that is an item of consideration that we are looking at to see what that would look like in the total cost and how many vehicles versus the cost here that's being reported. The only other thing which is hard to translate into costs, and this is just for general info of council, in the model you're suggesting as well, one other aspect that becomes to a logistics issue, and I don't know how you quantify the cost, is there going to be a gas card locked in there? There's all of that has to be taken into consideration, but it is what you are suggesting is definitely something that we are looking at in putting together the draft 2026 budget.
Yep, thank you.
I have a follow-on question from that then. For the arrangements that we have where we share some of our personnel with other municipalities and where that personnel is getting reimbursed for travel, are we charging the other municipalities a 51 cent or 70, like some rate to recover that same reimbursement towards the AO?
Thank you, Your Worship. I had the same question, so I pulled up an invoice from our CBO to the other municipality. We have been charging 70 cents per kilometer.
Okay.
70?
Yes.
That was last year, so it might have increased.
Okay, 70.
It's probably 72 now.
Okay, fair enough. The Councillor Downey?
Okay, couple things that I noticed. First of all, the Ottawa area, from what I could research, the average gas price has been $1.35. That's one point. Another point, in 2019, when the last increase was approved by council, we approximately paid out 7,800 kilometers. But now in 2024, 2025, the kilometer total has jumped to 25,000. That's kind of a question that's really glaring to me. Because to jump the rate on 7,800 kilometers, you know, it's not that big a deal. But why all of a sudden do we have 25,000 kilometers that we're paying for?
Do either of you gentlemen have an answer?
Through Your Worship, Councillor Downey, I'm unfortunately I can't give you a specific answer. It's something I could look into and bring back as a follow-up. I'm just going on the historical data that is available to me on the finance side. I can't answer the question right now as to why the spike in the actual mileage charged.
Follow-up?
Well, it's an important question.
Yep, fair enough. Councillor Brayden?
Thank you. You said that you had staff going to other municipalities and they were charging. They never used to go to other municipalities, so that's where some of the mileage would be going. A few months ago, I put a notice of motion in for us to get a little raise. We got one raise in 20 years. But anyway, I just wondered if council they turned it down. They didn't think that we needed it, I guess. Anyway, I just wondering if council would be comfortable with giving themselves more mileage. I just wondering that.
More, I think we get the same reimbursement,
Yeah.
whatever our policy is,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
applies to us as well as.
But I just
them.
wondered if council will be comfortable doing that, getting a raise with so that's something to take into consideration.
I see.
Thank you.
Yep, okay. Councillor Downing?
Okay, so that probably does explain some of the kilometers, but how far back are we going where we are sharing, you know, increasing the kilometers because of shared
Not very far.
services with, is it Rideau Lakes that we're sharing these services with?
No, I think Front of Young is one, I think we might have one other to our CAO.
Yeah, through Your Worship, Front of Young is one of those, and that agreement was signed in 2024, May 2024, I think it was. And Montague Township is the other, and I'm not quite sure when that was signed, but it was relatively recently as well.
So basically nothing more than 2 years old.
I think
Councillor Brayden?
wasn't that when we got Tracy when she was going back to Montague?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
But I mean, it's interesting the question, where are those kilometers going? From here to where, like, if we're going to another municipality, wouldn't they be paying from the start point to the end? Like, if a staff member is driving there, or, you know, they're gonna charge. I don't think that's anything off our, total.
No, and I think, no fault of the report or its author.
No.
This was focused on entirely on one side of the ledger. Didn't fold in, here's, you know, X amount of cost recovery from those shared services, but we have heard that is taking place. We just don't know what the quantum is.
Okay, so, okay, but I didn't know that, like, cost recoveries might be in here.
No, I don't believe that
No.
these figures
No.
reflect the fact
No.
that we've recovered. I'm just gonna pick an arbitrary number. We may have recovered $4,000 worth of mileage from the other municipalities, or 1,000,
But
whatever it is. But that's not baked in. This is not net.
No,
This is strictly what we've paid out.
so cost recovery could be in there, or is it?
No, through your worship, the Councillor Oosterhoff, the dollar amount that's reported in this report is the actual cost we've paid out. It does not or include any potential cost recovery that has gone out to other townships or other municipalities.
Okay.
Joyce AO.
Thank you, your worship. Yes, so on a monthly basis, our CBO is billing front of Young for any of their service. There is a kilometer, a mileage rate that's attached to that, so she always bills them for the mileage for any work that she's done for them. With Montague, she tends not to come into the office and then go there. She tends to be going there directly from home, so she's not accumulating any hours or any mileage from here to there.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
And also, in addition to that department, as you know, we're doing our own septic inspections now. So that's also additional kilometer cost that we never had before. And with the number of permits that are going on in this municipality, there's a lot more inspections taking place versus previous years.
And we have a fee schedule for that as well. So we may not
Yeah.
have, I don't know whether mileage is specifically part of the cost recovery. I think we just have an overall fee structure for inspections that talks about that as well.
Through your worship, and on a similar vein, the building department is also our facilities manager now, so they're spending more time going out to our facilities to make sure that they're actually doing the job that they've been supposed to be doing.
So
Mr.
these kilometers are then for a private vehicle being used.
Correct.
Correct. Yes.
Yes, okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay, anything else? So the only other thing that I'd like to contribute is that, interestingly enough, when we wait such a long time to do a review and make a potential adjustment, it seems like a large dollar amount. So, you know, we waited a number of years. We're talking about going from 51 cents to 72. So, you know, 21 cents a kilometer times the number of kilometers that we're doing becomes a significant shock to the system.
Mhm.
The recommendation that we have in front of us is to basically smooth that out entirely. So instead of a 21 cent discussion, next year might be a 2 cent discussion. So instead of a $5,000 discussion, it's a $500 discussion. Correct. So, you know, it's a more predictable way of doing business. All right, unless anybody has anything else, I'll go ahead and call the question on that one then. All those in favor? And opposed, if any? Okay, carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to, lost track of my numbers, 6.7, I think. Nope, 6.9. I knew it was an odd number. This is the investment strategy. The motion is the council receive report F-25-28 investment strategy, and the council approve the policy I-6 investment policy. And the council approve and direct staff to invest up to $2.5 million from operating cash flow, which complies within the guidelines of the policy I-6 investment policy. I'm looking for a mover and seconder to get that on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Eady, seconded by Councillor Smith. Mr. Director, you seem to have the spotlight this evening.
Thank you. Your worship, through your worship to members of the council. This is a bit of a complicated subject matter, and I'm trying to not make light of it, but not overcomplicate beyond the obvious in this. And this was mentioned to council in a prior council meeting, in that coincidentally tonight this would be brought back forward in front of council for consideration. Just to set the stage, and this was explained before, but just as a reminder to council, the current arrangements, the township has never thought of going outside into what we would call a diversified investment approach. And to this point, with the longstanding relationship with the financial institution, we've received interest on the operating account on the average balance in the month, and interest is paid at the end of the month. And that interest arrangement has always been at a rate of prime less 1.5%. Now, historically, back in 2023, 2024, early part, things were going very good as far as the interest rate bouncing back on the tail end of COVID. And as a result of that, in 2020, early 2024 and throughout 2023, the township was receiving a good interest rate on its money sitting in the operating account. However, it wasn't a fixed interest rate, it's a variable interest rate. And as the Bank of Canada drops their rate, prime drops, and subsequently the investment or the interest on the general account also drops. So for example, in 2024, the Bank of Canada dropped its rate 4 times. And in 2025, it has dropped it another 4 times, rate cuts. What that means is the overall interest rate has dropped 2.1% on the amount of money that is sitting for the township. And because it's variable, it's very unpredictable. It's based on market conditions, which none of us in this room have any control over. As a result of that, for example, if I use the 2025 budget, the interest revenue that was projected on the bank account holdings was $250,000. Given the market rate conditions in 2025, in reality, it's going to end up being more like $105,000 to $110,000. My point being this: there's $140,000 to $150,000 of lost potential interest revenue using that singular approach. The recommendation before council, and I should also mention, the analysts, the expectation by the analysts, and I've had many discussions with, is that the Bank of Canada is expected to hold its rate into 2026 and will not reduce it unless inflationary pressures in the employment market don't improve. Otherwise, we're looking at a very flat 2026, 2027. You could say, yes, we could leave the money where it is, but again, it's a variable rate. If there's a knee-jerk reaction in the market, your rate's going to change and go down. It's not going to go up, I'm telling you right now. However, the proposed strategy is to look at a fixed term investment, and the amount of interest that you can get for a fixed term is dependent on the length of investment you pick, and it's also dependent on the amount of money that you're prepared to invest. And staff have completed very detailed analysis of the last 24 months to get a handle on what is the average daily balance and how much of that could be deemed surplus that it could go into an investment. And from that analysis, what we found was that the average balance was anywhere between 1.7 million on a daily basis through to almost $7 million. And it has its ebbs and flows. However, having said that, what staff is recommending is comfortably putting forward $2.5 million from that operating account into a fixed rate investment. And we would be able to get a fixed rate after talking to financial institutions, brokerage, investors, brokerage arms. We'd be able to get a fixed rate of 4.75 to 5%. Now, if that money was ever required, although it's a 3-year fixed investment, 3-year investment vehicle, if the money was required, you could cash in and get that money back or use of it, and you would still get interest up to the point that you cash it in. If you cashed it in after year 1, you'd get that interest, you'd forego the interest for the remaining 2 years. So the money is always there available to you. The other thing is as well, which is outlined in the report, every municipality is very heavily prescribed under the municipal law and its supporting regulation, what type of investments you can go in, how much money you can put into an investment, who you can invest with. So the municipality's already mandated on that basis as to how they can invest their money. But as part and parcel of this report and recommendation is, there was previously an investment policy considered, but it was starting to be drafted, but nothing was brought forward for council to have a look at. And although the municipal legislation and supporting regulation mandates how you can invest your money, we're also recommending that it's also in the best interest of the township or the council to have our own investment policy that is over and above the requirements of the legislation. And that's not only good practice. I will use myself, quite frankly, as an example. If it is the decision of council tonight for me to proceed on behalf of council to make the investment that is required, I feel much more comfortable having that policy in place over and above the legislation for my own protection purposes, shall we say, or anyone who is undertaking that investment on behalf of the council. The bottom line here is this diversified approach, I think, is a very prudent way of investing taxpayers' dollars where there is a predictable interest revenue coming in on an annual basis and is not subject to market conditions and fluctuations. As well, with the regulations that are in place, the investment has to be done by a very select group of institutions that are listed in the regulation. We cannot just go out to investment on the corner store mentality and invest there. It has to be with an institution that's prescribed and listed by the province of Ontario. There's much more I care to say. I think the report is self-explanatory, but I'm very prepared to answer any questions that any councillors have or clarifications that they are asking for.
Okay, Councillor Downey.
So if your average as low as 1.7 and as high as 7, so you're suggesting a 2.5 for 3 years at 4.45. So when you go down below to the 1.7, then there's a difference of 800,000. So what do you suggest for that money?
Through your worship to Councillor Downey, it was in the report, and I apologize, I should have been touched on this. When what Councillor Downey has described occurs, you also have an authorized operating line of credit for $1.1 million. And the purpose of that operating line of credit is to use it for a very short-term period of time, if it does in fact occur, to deal with the daily operations and operating expenses. As outlined in the report, in that 24-month period, if I use that $2.5 million threshold, and you're absolutely right, Councillor Downey, of 800,000, the total in the 24 months where that threshold you'd be into the operating line of credit was 11 days in total. And if you look at what you'd be charged on the operating line of credit to facilitate that 11 days, it worked out to $831 a year. The interest that you are charged on the operating line of credit, if it is used, is prime, the prime rate, which today is 4.45%. But if you use the 2.5 threshold, then your total based on the last 2 years was 11 days in total, in that total 24-month period of each year that you would have had to dip into the operating line of credit.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Olstroff.
It's looking at this, when we're thinking of an RFP, you think that they would like to have that money in the bank account?
Through your worship to Councillor Oosterhoff, any of the financial institutions in the RFP would like to have that money, whether it's in the bank account or in being able to provide a competitive investment, that it's not in the bank account, but it remains within their financial institution.
So are you asking here that we're giving you direction to invest this and you go and do that, and then we do an RFP, and then they're looking and say, well, we just lost $2.5 million. So is that going to stay available to the potential banks to make their proposal for us?
Through your worship, Councillor Oosterhoff, we would have to be transparent in our RFP. That that council has approved an investment strategy, and here's what the amount of the investment is. For transparency purposes, but also to give them the opportunity as part of their RFP that they would like us to consider this type of an investment, and we'd be prepared to match this rate or actually provide a better rate than what we feel we can get right now. But in the RFP, we would have to be extremely transparent about that. So it's you raise a good point, Councillor Oosterhoff. If I'm bidding and I see your average balances could hit 7 million, and all of a sudden you're yanking 2.5 here, what gives? We would disclose that right up front in the RFP.
Yeah. So, yeah, I support that, where they get the chance to make an offer on this option that you have.
Absolutely.
Okay, anybody else? I have a couple of questions for you. So in the report, it talks about depending on the length of time and the amount of money that you have to invest, it can affect the rate. Was there any thought given to approaching neighboring municipalities who may or may not have the resources that we have? They may have more, they might have less. Would I be right in thinking that if we pooled our resources and got 4 or 5 municipalities together, that we may be looking at the opportunity of investing 5 or 6 or 8 or $10 million, and therefore we could all benefit from another 0.5% or whatever? Was anything like that examined?
To yourself, your worship, and members of council, we have had those discussions, and primarily the one heading up those discussions is a financial institution, and there is lukewarm interest, shall I say. Ourselves and a couple other municipalities, we see the synergy there of pooling the money. The other municipalities are very hesitant at this point in time to go into an arrangement like that. However, if council wishes, it's not only the investment here. The staff before investing could report back, if you wish, to council on what possibly that could look like with a couple of additional municipalities, and what synergy benefits would there be financially for the 3 or 4.
Okay, I certainly have an interest in that. I don't know if council does, but it may be that those municipalities change their thinking a little bit once they find out that somebody ourselves is taking lead and is going down this path. Then they may choose to say, oh, if somebody else is going down this path, I'll walk with them.
And if I may, your worship, add as well to that, when I do like the idea of pooling for many reasons, is when you get into the rates, it is what they call a WARE effect, or a weighted average interest return. It's a tier effect in the financial markets. So, for example, I'm saying 4.75 to 5% for 2.5 million. If it was 2 million, you're down at 4 to 4.25. If you are 5 million to say 7.5, you're looking in the high 5, low 6%. And if you were successful in pooling enough to be in the high 5, in the 9 to 10 million, especially if you hit 10 million, then you're getting into the 7.5 to 8% rate of return.
Okay, and my second item is more of a comment or context rather than a question. When I take a look in the report at the effect of the drop in interest rates that we are going to experience in our 2025 budget, it basically accounts for half, if not more now in our revised projection of the year-end deficit. And so one of the great advantages is that if we get into this fixed rate, we will no longer suffer from that. So had we already been in that position of having a fixed rate and not having to deal with this drop of $140,000, then our projected year-end deficit that we heard tonight would be in that 1 to 1.5% of budget range, which is
Correct.
More palatable than the 3% range that it's in right now.
Correct.
So it solves that issue that we are in fact experiencing right now.
It's through to your worship and other. It's not only being smart with the money to earn interest revenue, it's all about predictability. And everyone in this room knows the unpredictability out there. So it's another way we can minimize that exposure.
Okay, so unless there's anything else, I'll go ahead and call a question on that one then. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much for your series of presentations. The next one lets you off the hook. We're on to our October building report. The motion is that report B-25-14, October 2025 building activity report be received. Need a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Smith. Any comments or questions on that report? Okay, Councillor Smith.
So just touch on a previous report we talked about in regards to mileage. As you can see that your building permit revenues and your septic permit revenues, you know, they're revenue back into the department. So when you look at that goes to show you that the kilometers that we're paying these people, it could be a wash.
Yeah, and I would also suggest that at the next appropriate cycle, when we do our fee review, which should be an ongoing thing, the increase that we just approved tonight in the mileage reimbursement will help become a part of that process, and we may adjust our fees a little bit to be recovering that difference in mileage as well. All right, so if there are no further comments or questions on the report, all those in favor of receiving that? That carries. Thank you. Okay, next item, 611, I think. Yep. So this is with regards to the Limerick Environmental Waste Collection Contract. The motion is that staff report A-25-72 Limerick Environmental Household Waste Collection Contract be received, and the council authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute the contract, and that the necessary bylaw be enacted. May mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Downey. Sorry, didn't quite see your hand there for a moment. Mr. CAO, anything to add at this point?
Thank you, Your Worship. So this was something that council had been dealing with over the last few months, and it was really negotiating with Limerick a new agreement following one that had been executed last year. This simply puts into place more stability for Limerick, but also for the township in terms of knowing what the future costs are. We've talked about a phased-in increase over a 5-year period of the contract, and that's what is reflected in this. Limerick have been really great to work with, quite frankly, and I think they are in agreement with this proposed contract, and I hope council will agree.
The only thing that I'll add to that is I think it's important to contextualize this, that this increased cost is coming as a result of a significant change in the logistics around recyclable materials. The ERP, extended producer responsibility approach that the province has phased in, that comes into full effect in January, and so now some other body is responsible for all the logistics of those materials, and so we don't have the efficiency anymore of a single truck hitting a single driveway and doing two things at once. So it's not something that could be avoided. It's unfortunate, but we've made the best of it. So with that, I'll open up the floor for discussion, if any. Councillor Smith.
So shouldn't really discuss within this report, but it's already indicated in this report with the Circular Materials Ontario taking over the recycling pickup. So my question, so as we've heard previously that the province is going to be collecting all residential recycling throughout the municipality, the entire municipality, correct? And way back when I asked the question previous to the contractor taking over, I'd like to know how they're going to manage our private roads and all that kind of stuff. We've heard absolutely nothing about how they're collecting the recyclables and how we're going to get the word out, communicate this to the public, especially in the southern portion of the municipality, which they don't already have they don't have a municipal pickup of waste or recyclables. So I'm wondering how that's going to go, but let's do this report and then I think we better have a discussion about the other stuff.
Okay, Mr. CAO.
Thank you, your worship. Discussions are still ongoing between staff and CMO in terms of, they haven't really given us the official of what they're going to be doing going forward. Seems their intention is to continue to do curbside collection in Kitley Township. But in Elizabethtown, they will still need to continue to come to the waste depot to dispose of the recycling material.
Okay.
And that is consistent with all the information that we received at the beginning of this 3-year process.
What we're doing.
Is that they were obliged at a minimum to maintain at least the service levels that we currently had. They had the option of going beyond that, but we were always given the assurance they would always provide at least the service that we did. So continuation of curbside in the north end, and at a minimum, the transfer approach at the wayside.
Okay.
That does not preclude them, if it's to their advantage and their desire, they could just as easily on December 31st, or even after they start rolling the trucks, given their past performance, they could just suddenly start showing up at people's driveways. And as the CIO has indicated, those discussions are ongoing so that we don't get a repeat surprise. We're doing everything we can to be as informed as we can, but where there's a vacuum, there's a vacuum.
Okay. Very.
Anything else on this item? Okay, I'll call the question on the report then, and approving the agreement. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Opposed, if any? Okay. All right, and the final staff report is item 6.12. This is the revised Knapp Woods Road, Rowson Road agreement. The motion is that council receive report A-25-73, revised Knapp Woods Road, Rowson Road agreement, and the council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the revised agreement. I'm looking for a mover and seconder to get that on the floor. Moved by Councillor Smith, and seconder please, and seconded by Councillor Downey. Mr. CAO, anything else at this point?
Thank you, your worship. This is an agreement that was executed last year between Mr. Knapp and the township with regards to what effectively is a land swap for some land between the two parties. Staff have been working towards this and working towards some of the agreements that need to be put in place. We were struggling, I guess, with some of the terms in the agreement that needed some clarity, and so we have been working with Mr. Knapp to revise the agreement. And what is before you tonight is the revised agreement that he has everything that he was expecting in the contract in there, and provides more clarity for the township and for him.
Okay, thank you. So I'll open up the floor for discussion, if any. Okay, not seeing any, so I'll go ahead and call the question then. All those in favor? And opposed, if any? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Right, we will move on to our committee minutes. Any motions that may come out of there? The motion is that the following draft committee minutes be received. The Public Library Board draft minutes dated October 15th, 2025. Planning Advisory Committee draft minutes dated October 22nd, 2025. Committee of Adjustment draft minutes dated October 23rd, 2025. The Lynn Bandshell Ad Hoc Committee draft minutes dated November 4th, 2025. And the Economic Development Committee draft minutes dated November 11th, 2025. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Bray. Does any member have any questions or concerns regarding any of those sets of minutes? And I do see that there's at least one, if not more, resolutions coming out of those. Okay, I'll call the question on receiving those then. All those in favor? Councillor Smith?
Just a question. So the lease agreement with the library and Burnbrae, has that been signed off? Has everything been done with this agreement?
And these minutes are fairly old, October, and yes, in the last library meeting, we were presented with an approved lease signed and sealed. And it's gone to staff to look at, peruse through our chief financial officer, and so the agreement's done.
So when you say it's done, it's not yet executed on our side?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is, okay, all right, fair enough, okay, so that's.
Agreement has been,
Council has approved it?
don't think this council has, but the board of the library has. And our chief financial officer of the library has gone through it with a fine tooth comb. And it's very similar to the one we had previous.
Yeah, and I think it's important to make the distinction that for the main library, we are the landlord of that library and the library operates out of our facility. Whereas for this location that we're talking about in Lynn, that's the library board entering into an arrangement with a third party. We don't really have any involvement in that. They operate under their own. Any other questions?
But the library board did add
Yes,
for.
Sure.
The chief financial officer to peruse through it.
Yeah.
For advice or.
and we happen to, the two bodies, both the council and the library board happen to share the same person in that role as well, which is
That is the truth.
also convenient.
Yep. I wasn't mentioning names, but you did.
Well, that's okay. That's a public arrangement, so that's it. Okay, any other questions on any of those other sets of minutes? We did, by the way, call the vote. They did all pass, but okay, no further questions. All right, so coming out of the packed minutes, the motion is that severance B-64-25 regarding 245 Hudson Point Road, concession 1, part lot 30, geographic Elizabethtown, owner of Thompson, as detailed in the packed minutes on pages 1 through 3, be approved. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder for that one, please. Moved by Councillor Eady, seconded by Councillor Smith. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? That carries, thank you. That was the only thing coming out of the minutes, so now we're on to correspondence. Councillor Osterhoff.
If I could, like,
Yeah.
If I have a question about a possible library cost, is that for the next meeting to bring up when it comes to the budget for next year? Or do I bring up to the attention now?
To our director of finance, how would you like that handled?
Through yourself to Councillor Oosterhoff, at the last library board meeting, the library board approved their budget for 2026, which will be coming forward as part of our budget deliberations. After that was approved, there was further discussion, which Councillor Oosterhoff is referring to, that may come to additional budget items, but more of a capital nature. So I think the best would be it will include that as a parking lot item for capital discussion. And I think the best is for that to be brought forward to council as part of the overall budget deliberations.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, so moving on to correspondence, we have two items there. The motion is the correspondence items 1 and 2 be received and filed. If I could get a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Eady, seconded by Councillor Brayton. Regarding 8.1, actually both of these are media releases from the counties regarding various topics. I'm happy to entertain any questions, and if I can provide answers, I will. Otherwise, it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, I'll call the question on receiving those then. All those in favor? That carries, thank you. Under informational items, you will see there item 9.1. This is a follow through on something that I said I would do, and that is to redelegate the various authorities, which I'm able to, that were assigned to me, delegate them back to where they originally rested before the introduction of strong mayor powers. I will comment on the fact that strong mayor powers came in April. It's not an accident that I've waited until now to delegate these authorities back. It was important to me, given the way that whole strong mayor power thing rolled out and the suspicion that it created, to demonstrate that in all the time that I've held these powers from April until now, I have not exercised them as I said I would not. So it was important to me that I actually demonstrated that I follow through on what I say. So now, as of tonight, they are delegated back to their original owners, so to speak. Councillor Osterhoff?
Just for discussion.
Yeah.
Does that include your involvement and leadership in the budget?
No, the budget item is not something that the act gives me the option of delegating back. So I have participated in the budget to the extent that I'm required to by the legislation and the associated regulations, no more, no less.
Okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
But I just want some clarity myself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ready? Anything else? I believe, Mr. Director, you have an item under information items.
Yes.
That also relates back to me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And it has to do exactly with the subject matter Councillor Oosterhoff brought up. The original schedule that was provided to council was for the presentation or tabling of the budget on December the 8th. To just cut to bare bones here, more runway time is needed in putting this together because there are, and decisions made tonight will have impact on that budget. And I guess I would just say tongue in cheek, we want to get this and get this right. That it's brought forward in the manner it is intended and it's done responsibly. So therefore, I did reach out to His Worship this afternoon, earlier today. And what I'm proposing is a further amendment of 2 weeks in the schedule. So to give councillors an idea, the tabling of the budget that was proposed on December the 8th would now be on December the 22nd. The presentation of operating capital separately was intended for the 22nd of December. That will be on the 12th of January. Hence, your worship's comment earlier about another matter making it on the 26th. Then one-on-one meetings with staff would take place the week of January the 18th. Budget presentations from any service partners would take place on the 26th. And then the actual approval of the 2026 budget would come forward on February the 9th. I want to make one clarification in case the question does come up. When this was originally presented, and we as well were getting acclimatized with strong mayor powers as it pertained to budget, our understanding was that the budget had to be approved by February 1st, 2026. I was not alone in that. Other neighboring municipalities like-minded were of the same impression. But as we, as of late, get into further discussions, we received further clarification, and including the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, who outlined, although the wording of the act itself is not the strongest, they provided the clarification that the budget has to be tabled by the mayor by February the 1st, 2026. So not approved by February 1st. However, and the mayor is in agreement from what discussion we had, albeit by email today, is the intent here is not to postpone things to start the process on February the 1st. It's just to increase the process, just move it out 2 weeks in order, as I said, more runway time is needed.
And I'm now going to go back and review. I had a cursory glance at my budget directive letter. I don't believe it requires any revision, but if it does for some item of minutia, I'll do that. But I'm hoping to have to go back and revisit that. I'd like to be able to think that can stand the way it is. Our CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to ask maybe that the finance director circulates that schedule to all council. I would, however, note that January 18th, Roma conference is on that weekend. The vast majority of people will go to the meeting.
Guys, I can do it.
Yeah. Much as I appreciate that,
virtual from
Don't
Rome.
worry about it.
Not like.
so maybe we'll advance that by one cycle.
Okay.
Yeah. Good catch. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Does any other member of council have, sorry, Mr. Director?
Just I have another informational item.
Fair enough.
It's a positive note, and hopefully it gives you some comfort. On behalf of my wife and I, we're very happy to say that as of Wednesday evening, we are officially full-time residents of Elizabethtown-Kitley.
Oh, congratulations. Very good.
You'll be paying taxes here.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Thanks for your future contributions to our community. All right, fair enough. Does any member have an information item to share?
This Christmas supper on Friday night, is it? Or
Fire.
Yes, we do have the firefighters Christmas gala coming up on Friday evening.
That's 6 o'clock.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
6 o'clock
Yes,
start.
6 o'clock, correct, yeah.
That's it.
Toledo Leisure, yep. And while we're talking about the theme of Christmas, we had one opportunity this past Saturday for the food drive in Lynn. The next one, and the final one is this coming Saturday in Toledo. Excuse me, at our satellite office, from 10 until 2. And in addition to an appearance again by Santa, I understand that he's bringing at least one, if not more, reindeer with him this time. So it'll be a golden opportunity.
Can I get my letter in then?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Make sure you're on the right list.
Well,
I'm saying.
say that.
Councillor Ostrov?
Can I ask again what was scheduled for January 26th on our agendas? Like, well, when it comes to the budget, was there?
Yes.
If I may, your worship.
Go ahead.
From the budget perspective, it was budget presentations from service partners. But his worship, CEO just reminded the week before we had things planned for the week of the 18th,
Yeah.
but Roma is on. And if I understood his worship correctly, the latter part of that cycle will probably push out another cycle. So, and on the 26th, if I understood his worship correctly, you wouldn't have the budget, but from earlier this evening, I believe there was discussion on a bylaw, et cetera, coming back for discussion on the 26th.
Because I know now I have a conflict with that night. I don't know if you guys wanna meeting at 1 in the afternoon that day, but
Well, so as I understand it, that'll be basically a normal, well, I'm gonna call it quote unquote, normal council business evening rather than a budget centric one
Correct.
on the 26th.
okay,
So arguably a little less important.
So then your worship would.
I wouldn't go with those words, but I'm saying I might be more comfortably
Right.
not
Okay.
being here.
Fair enough.
If it's not.
So,
All right.
look, worship, if I may ask just for my own clarity, based on the CAO with Roma, am I correct then on the latter dates? So the budget meeting or the budget presentations on the 26th would then go to the 9th of February, and then council approval of the budget would go to the following date in February, which would be, I believe, 23rd.
Yeah, and I think we're still just within the timelines to
Yeah,
get that done.
you're within the 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. I'll move on then to notices of motion. Does any member have a notice of motion tonight? Councillor Smith?
So just a question, I don't think it needs to be a motion or notice of motion, it's more of a procedural bylaw amendment. So we have the acting mayor schedule, and then we have committee of the whole chairs. May I suggest that whoever the acting mayor is, whatever month that person may have, has that month for committee of the whole for consistency. During the summer, we had Laura was sending out emails and saying you're a committee of you're chair of the committee of the whole, but the acting month mayor is someone else. I'm just trying to get them more of a consistency so that that this is your month, be prepared no matter what.
Yeah, and I think the acting mayor actually goes every 2 months.
Yeah, it's a 2-month cycle.
We
Yeah.
could do it monthly. All I'm trying to get is consistent, that's all.
Um,
I'm just asking.
Think about it.
but yeah, I think if we were to change the acting mayor schedule, then yeah, that would need to be notice of motion, and I think we need to
No,
look at the procedures. If you're just looking for simply alignment between the committee of the whole chair
Yeah,
and the existing acting mayor
yeah.
rotation to our deputy, is the assignment of the chair actually baked so strongly into our procedures that we would have to amend it, or we could just adopt?
That
That
was just
new
a
rotation.
conversation you're on.
Okay, all right, so how does council feel about just creating alignment between the committee of the whole chair and the term of the acting mayor? Okay.
Says that I just missed
Okay,
mine.
but
Yeah,
See ya.
Councillor Olshaw?
do all councillors take a role in acting mayor responsibility if there's a need? Is there any abstentions from that?
There have not been any abstentions. There has been an abstention from the committee, from chairing the committee of the whole, given the work that's involved in digesting the agenda and that type of thing. Councillor Brayton?
Yeah, I abstained from
Chair.
chair
Yeah,
because I can't see and read and whatever.
sure. Well, you can read, you just can't see, and I'm only quoting you
can't
back.
see to read, yeah.
That's what you said over many years, so I
Yeah,
felt
I
comfortable.
just can't see to read.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyway, yeah, you guys do whatever you want, but I don't have to be in the loop on that.
So the implication is if we align the chairing of the committee with the acting mayor schedule, you are still in the acting mayor rotation. But you wouldn't be able to chair the committee, so it creates a bit of a logistical challenge.
Yeah.
Just wait.
Let's sleep on it and see if we can come up with a solution.
I'm just trying to get some consensus. That's-
No, I understand. It's a fair goal. But
Then
that's
you
not
know-
wrong. We're gonna
then you
solve
know-
tonight.
Yeah,
If you're,
you
if you're
you
in,
know
you're
that's their
in.
month,
Yeah.
you know, like.
Yeah.
Like 4 months, be
The
prepared.
mayor's always here, so what difference does it make?
Yeah, that's
It's
pretty,
fair.
Well,
hasn't been utilized too much, but that's good.
all right. We'll think on that, maybe come back with an idea or two. All right, so no notices of motion tonight then? Okay, public question period. We do have a member of the public here. Sir, do you have any questions for us?
No, thanks. I just answered it at the end here.
Oh, okay, all right, marvelous. Okay, did we receive anything online? Nothing online. Okay. So we have our confirmatory bylaw. So the motion is that bylaw number 25-58 be now read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed, signed, sealed, excuse me, and numbered accordingly. Could I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Eady, seconded by Councillor Brayton. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. And then adjournment. Thank you, Councillor Brayton, who moves to the regular meeting of council adjourn at 9:10 p.m. to meet again on Monday, December 8th, beginning at 7 p.m. All those in favor? That carries.
How do you like me, Ellie?